Good afternoon, board members, staff, and citizens. I'll bring the Amherst County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Let the record show that today is February the 4th, and the time is 3 p.m. Are there any changes to the agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Wade. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The agenda is now approved. Today, Mr. Adams will lead us in invocation, followed by Mr. Wade leading the pledge.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we want to first thank you for giving us a beautiful day to come before you and conduct the business for Amherst County. Dear Lord, we also ask you to be with those that are sick and shut in, and please lay your healing hand upon them to bring them health and wellness. Dear Lord, as we continue to ask you each meeting to continue to keep your hands of safety upon our public safety personnel and law enforcement as they go out and do the difficult job that they have day in and day out. Dear Lord, please give us the strength and the wisdom as we go through this meeting to make the best decisions for the citizens of Amherst County and also our staff and the services that we provide. And all those things we ask. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Thank you, Mr. Wade. Before we get started on our agenda items, I want to remind the citizens of our rules of engagement, if you would. There are no public hearings today. If you wish to comment on any issue that's on the agenda or anything that's not on the agenda, you will have two opportunities. One will be at the beginning under citizens' comment, and the second will be at the end of the meeting, also deemed citizens' comment. We ask that you give your name, your district, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. A reminder that the proceedings here are live streamed on YouTube, and there are also archived copies should we need at any time to go back and clarify anything. So those are our ground rules, same as they are every single meeting, and we will now, get started under citizens' comments. And we've got a sign-up sheet here. If you didn't sign up, no worries. You can still have an opportunity. First up is Mr. Jeff Rowe.
Good afternoon. This is my first time doing this. My question, I guess, would be under 8D, Legal Services Funding for Sheriff's Deputies. I'm assuming that's for the Brady letters that were given out by the Commonwealth Attorney from Lynchburg, Nelson, and Amherst. Why would my tax dollars go towards that? If that is the case, then every citizen, every person in the county would have need for an attorney would have to come before y'all and ask for legal services. This will cost the county about $30,000 per officer. That's my opinion. So, and plus whatever overtime the attorney would have, that $100-some thousand a piece. I mean, for 4 or 5 deputies. So why should my tax dollars go towards that? No one else has the Board of Supervisors on an agenda to put towards attorney fees. So my question is, why would my tax dollars go towards defending anybody? That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Next up, we have Ms. Leslie Gamble. Ms. Gamble.
Good afternoon. My name is Leslie Gamble, and I am in District 2. My concerns are also concerning the legal service funding for sheriff deputies. I fully support an appeal process for any deputy that has received a Brady letter. Keep that in mind. My concerns are this. The citizens' taxes are paying for both the salaries and operating expenses of both the Sheriff's Department and Commonwealth Attorney's Department. We're being asked now to pay more for the Sheriff's Department to undermine the credibility of the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. That's a concern of mine. Will the county also have to provide legal assistance to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office for their defense? Has a statute of limitations been set on a time period for a deputy to request aid? A deputy that received a Brady letter 10 years ago, is he eligible to receive this funding? Who determines which deputy receives the funding? If the basis for the Brady letter came from another jurisdiction, such as Lynchburg or Nelson County, are we then going to attack the credibility of that Commonwealth attorney? A legal procedure must be established first with clearly defined parameters as to time limits, authority to approve requests, and who determines the validity of the charges. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gamble. Next, we have Mr. Scott Cam.
Hi, I think this is how it works. Listen, I'm in District 2. That would be Chris's little project over there. Listen, I wasn't aware of the Brady Law. I think this came in effect in 1963, wasn't it? In a Maryland case is when we had the Brady Law, and it was designed to weed out corruption in officers that just blatantly didn't tell the truth or manufactured or created evidence. Isn't this what it is? But let's fast forward to right now. Fast forward to right now. The Brady Law right now is a piece of paper hanging over any one of these officers, hanging over their head, and they have no real way to defend themselves or prove their innocence. How is it possible that we have 4 or 5 Brady letters, but we haven't had any in 8 years? And the ones we have now appeared during the Ayers administration. Isn't that peculiar? That all of them just seem to have cropped up right now? Now, I've known Jamie Begley for 35 years. Now, how can we sit here and question his integrity when he's given his life and his service to the military in 4 different divisions with P. Paul Bremer in the defense of Iraq? How can we look at him and
Mr.
tell...
Cam, make sure you're talking into the mic so everyone can hear you. Thank you.
How can we say that there's something in Jamie, that there's some lying in him? I just don't see that. And knowing Jimmy Ayers for the last 35 years, let me point this out very quickly. When my sister was cut into little pieces in Kentucky, the prosecuting attorney was a let 'em go Larry. And we fought for 48 years to keep him in jail. And the many, many letters that were written by that crowd over there, helping me keep that killer in jail. So I want to thank Jimmy and Jamie and Gerald Higginbotham, who's not here. Thank you. And I think any amount or any defense or any funds to help him with his legal issues that we as a county should pay. That's all. He's been accused of something, but there seems to be no merit behind it. These Brady letters have appeared recently. How come none were issued over the last 8 years? Why are they appearing now? Well, I think I've said what I have to say. But again, thank you, Jim, and thank you, Jamie, for the service and the many letters that you did for my family, which basically destroyed them. My sister was cut up in a bathtub with a chainsaw and dumped all over the state of Kentucky. And we had a let 'em go Larry prosecutor there. And we fought and fought and fought.
Mr. Cam, your time's up. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for what happened to you. Thank you.
Well, I said my piece. Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Dwayne Branham. Okay, so we'll cross that off. We have Mr. Karen Craig, Ms. Karen Craig.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Supervisors, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to speak first off today. I am a citizen of this county and have been for 31 years. During this time as a resident, I've not only served as a taxpayer, but also as a civil servant to this county. I was employed by the Blue Ridge Regional Jail Authority for 17 years, and prior to that was probation parole officer for the District 13 Probation Parole Office that serves this county. I served as the officer for this county for 4 years, City of Lynchburg for 2 years. During my time at Blue Ridge Regional Jail Authority, I worked my way through and up the ranks to the rank of major, and I ran the Amherst Appomattox Adult Detention Center here. I worked closely with Sheriff Ayers and his staff when I ran that jail. In 2014, I finally attained my final career goal and became a superintendent, a colonel of a regional jail in Southside, Virginia, at Southside Regional Jail. I returned to Amherst County after my retirement, where I served as an interim superintendent at Riverside Regional Jail, the largest regional jail in the Commonwealth of Virginia. During my time as a public servant, I endured hardship that involved a lot of bureaucratic issues. I was sexually harassed, and I worked in hostile work environments. In those days, one endured personally, held your head up, and you moved on. What has come to light recently in this county regarding Brady letters with our sheriff's department is appalling. I think the Amherst County Sheriff's Office are having to endure things that no one else has had to. It is abominable as a taxpayer in my terms. No one, and I mean no one, should be slandered, fear of loss of their livelihood, or be ridiculed publicly for doing their job. I am ashamed of how the sheriff's office in this county is being treated and how this elected official and his staff can randomly choose who and how they want to prosecute cases, as well as target individuals in a clear attempt of retaliation towards someone that they should and are supposed to work with closely. I come today first to show my support for Sheriff Ayers and Major Bagley and all of the officers of the Amherst County Sheriff's Office. Secondly, I have come to implore you as a board of elected officials in this county to look at and support the Amherst County Sheriff's Office and the extraordinary leadership that exists there. Our Sheriff's Office serves to protect each and every one of us in this county every day. The very least that we, as officials and citizens of the county, could do is provide them with support they deserve and that they should have. To stand up against the vile...
Ms. Craig, you're out of town.
I am sorry. I want to thank you again. I just would like to ask you all to support and thank you for allowing me to
Ms.
speak.
Craig, and I need it for the record, what district are you in?
I'm sorry, I'm in the Elam District.
Elam District,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Craig. Next, we've got Mr. Jones Stanley.
Good afternoon, all. My name's Jones Stanley. I live out at 843 Father Judge Road, Monroe, Virginia. I'm in Chris Adams' district over there. Proud to be a part of that. I've lived here since 1986. I had a chance to attend a meeting a couple of weeks ago where I learned something I'd never heard of before, of where a person who does his job and works at it, and anybody can accuse him, and he has no right to defend himself. In other words, we have a God-given right to defend ourselves. I mean, if a bear comes up behind him, we're legal to punch him, or whoever. It could be a person. That is our right to defend ourselves. We always have an opportunity to defend ourselves. And if what I heard at that meeting, it really upset me, because it appears that we're taking away that right from a gentleman who, like me, signed a blank check to the United States of America, up to and including his life for his country. And we are trying to create a position or a situation where he's in a position where he can't defend himself. If this goes to the Supreme Court, or if it goes to the Supreme Court of the state of Virginia, or the Supreme Court of the United States, this is a constitutional right, and we're in violation of it if you're going to do this. Everybody has a right to defend himself, and how we can stand up here and say, or talk like they did at that meeting the other night, that he can't defend himself, that's wrong. I mean, I know all these police officers. I've been stopped by them a couple of times at different things. But yeah, and I know, and they have done a fine job. I've been here for 86, and I know them all. I've seen them in times of difficulty, and they have a terrible job. You don't know when you walk up to that car whether the guy's going to have a gun and shoot you as you step up there. And for us to try to take away the defense of these people that work and serve and protect us on a daily basis is wrong. It is literally wrong. There's got to be a way to repeal this. I'm not against anybody, but I'm just saying the people that do this deserve to have an out. In other words, if they're accused of something, they should have an attorney there with them to protect them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. That's all that we've got signed up. However, I did receive an email from a Ms. Kim Wood that she asked me to read, so I'll read that now under citizens' comment. They're in the form of questions. Question 1, I had never heard of a Brady letter before December the 3rd, 2024, when the Deputy Commonwealth's Attorney posted a copy of an email on her personal Facebook page stating, quote, there are 5 current employees with Brady letters. How can it be possible for 5 people from varying places to commit violations needing a Brady letter, and it was not cited at their prior department? Question 2, the Amherst County Sheriff's Office has received an abnormal amount of Brady letters only after Sheriff Ayers was elected and as these deputies were hired after January 1, 2024. Why were these letters not issued at the time the incidents occurred? According to the letters received at the ACRC meeting a week ago, some of these incidents that claim to be compromising deeds happened over 5 years ago. This just looks like it's targeting Amherst County Sheriff's Office. Best regards, Kim Wood. Is there anyone else out there wishing to speak that did not sign up? All right, seeing and hearing none, we will now close citizen comments and move on to the consent agenda. Board members, any questions?
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Consent agenda is now approved. And we will move on to a special presentation, which is a commemorative resolution. And I will present this to the family of Mr. Leon Parrish. If y'all would come forward, please. First, let me say that I'm so sorry for y'all's loss. I knew Leon, I served with him for a little while on the Board of Supervisors, and he was such a studious, so serious about his work for Amherst County, but goodness gracious, he could make me laugh. He was a really good policymaker. Commemorative Resolution number 2025-1-CR. Be it resolved by the Amherst County Board of Supervisors, that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Amherst, Virginia hereby honors and remembers Leon Jr. Parrish. Whereas Mr. Parrish passed from this life on November 20th, 2024 at the age of 83 years, and whereas he displayed a life committed to this county and lived a life of public service since he first served as a member of the Amherst County Electoral Board. And whereas he then served on the Amherst County School Board before he faithfully and impartially represented District 5 of Amherst County, Virginia, on the Amherst County Board of Supervisors member from January 1994 to December 31st, 2009. And whereas during this time, as a member of the Board of Supervisors, he served as chairman in 95, 2001, 2005, and 2009. He served as the Board of Supervisors liaison to the Planning Commission from 1994 to 2009, and served on the Joint Cooperation Committee between the Amherst County Board of Supervisors and the Town Council, and whereas Mr. Parrish served on the Central Virginia Community Services Board from 2010 to 2012, and whereas he went on to serve as a member of the Amherst County Social Services Board from 2014 to 2024. And whereas Mr. Parrish was a well-loved, known, and respected member of the community in Amherst County and would be missed by many, and it is fitting that the Board of Supervisors should remember and honor his life. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Amherst, Virginia hereby recognizes the contributions of Leon J. Parrish and his many decades of service in the community and the impact he had on the county, and extends its sincerest condolences to his family and friends, and joins with them in mourning this fine individual. That this resolution shall be in force and effect upon adoption, adopted this 4th day of February 2025. Claudia Tucker and the Amherst County Board of Supervisors. Thank you very much. All right, board members, we need a motion to adopt said resolution.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Adams. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion is hereby approved. Thank you all again. Sorry for your loss. Next, we've got old business, the potential service district. Mr. Creasy.
Madam Chair, Board, good to see you all. The board, at your December 3rd, 2024 meeting, directed staff to draft a road improvement and Victoria Drive assessment ordinance so that the board can have a better understanding of the operations for a potential service district. So there are two main documents found within your board packet that I'd like to bring your attention to. The first one should be noted road improvements. So this is the ordinance that would need to be passed. It would go through both the Planning Commission and, of course, you all. And this is taking it from Virginia State Code 15.2-2403, which allows counties to assess and then collect payment and/or help with the construction or maintenance of private roads to be brought into the state system. At your December 3rd meeting, you all asked me to, of course, not to reinvent the wheel, and we try not to do that. So a lot of this information is taken from two localities, Campbell County and Gloucester. Campbell County mostly. And with that, staff noticed that in their research, state code, that 15.2 code I spoke about, requires that 50% of the residents bring forth a petition to you all to begin this process. In staff's research, we've noticed that many localities up that percentage to 75%. And so that is why when you look at that article road improvement ordinance, it indicates that 75% of the landowners with abutting parcels have consented to the special assessment. And so with that, that leads into the second document, which is a draft document specifically for Victoria Drive. This document, many questions came up at our last meeting for how do we set the price, how do we set the amount of time that we recoup the cost, as well as what is the actual price per month or per year on real estate that these individual property owners would have to pay additional for. This is where this would be determined and approved. This would require a public hearing process, and it's only after that petition is brought before you. Now, in doing this, in theory, a bunch of residents could sign up do the road improvement ordinance and sign up and not need any upfront costs from you all. However, I don't believe that's really realistic for road improvements, as the cost of construction has gone up greatly. So with that, in order to recoup costs, Virginia Code Section 15.2-2405 will come into play, and that's written into this special assessment district right here. And it states in counties on a petition from not less than 60%, so you would either have to have 60% of the property owner sign up, of the landowners to be affected thereby, or by 2/3 vote of all members elected to the governing body. So I say all this, going back to the road improvement ordinance, it's proposed to be at a 75% threshold. Let's say you all wanted to reduce that to 50%. If it was reduced to 50%, and let's say only 58% of the abutting parcels signed up for that petition, when it comes to this, four out of the five board members would need to approve that public hearing for it to go through, because they would not have the 60% that is indicated in that 2405 state code section. And so therefore, staff believes that a 75% threshold is seen in other localities, is our recommendation in moving forward. Now, I say all that, I did put together a list of parcels on Victoria Drive. We're speaking specifically about Victoria Drive. And you'll notice that roughly 59% or around 60% of the total residents have a mailing address on Victoria Drive. I don't know if that means they rent or live there, but it's a good assumption that they might live down Victoria Drive. And then roughly 40.5% of the total residents have mailing addresses not located on Victoria. And there are a few in there that you'll notice, like North Coolwell's a familiar road that is in Amherst, but there are some areas like 64 Eli Chapman that is nowhere near Amherst County. So it's a mix of both in there. And so with that, there are two recommended motions. Staff's first step, if you all would like to move forward, would be to begin working and drafting to put in an ordinance form the road improvement ordinance. This would allow for property owners on these private roads to begin that petition process after this ordinance is passed, and then that's when it would come to you for further determination of how many years that potential service district would be, the total cost, and things like that. And with that, do you have any questions for staff?
Board members?
I do have a question, just for clarification, for the
Yes, sir.
ones whose mailing address is not located on Victoria Drive. Do we know if they're renting the property? Do we know what's going on with those properties?
Yeah, great question. And so without doing like a survey and figuring that out, I was unable to determine that. So you'll notice if it's colored green, they have a mailing address on Victoria. Typically what we see in community development, if they're renting that parcel, they're getting their mail to where they actually live. So we assume that anything colored in yellow would be a renter or it's a vacant parcel. So if you notice, there's also some in here that do not have an address. It's just a tax map parcel. That's because there's no structure on that property.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Board members, any other questions?
I don't, Madam Chair.
Mr. Martin, my computer's about to die. Can you take over for just a second while I get this?
All right. Board members, what's your pleasure? So I guess I'll start out. I originally requested this after meeting with residents on Victoria Drive. And this is one of those situations where, and I know they exist throughout the county, right? But I think it's what happens when you have a subdivision that was put in with roads to substandard conditions, which I believe we should not allow anymore and do not allow anymore. And then you have defunct homeowners associations where, there's either the fees are not being collected, which in my understanding they are not, or, they're just not being able to collect them to a degree that they would be able to fund these necessary road improvements. And these roads are in horrible shape. And I think this is a perfect opportunity, a perfect solution of what government should be able to do, is to step in and help its citizens. We're not handing them anything. We're basically facilitating, and they are paying the county back over time with an increased tax. I do think that the 75% threshold is unreasonable personally, because, you know, at least 40-some% of them do not live on the road and really have no reason to pay into it, right? So I would prefer that we go back to the 50 and whatever he said, 2/3 or whatever. So again, I think this is a perfect opportunity. I think it's a model that we could look at in other areas of the county as our finances allow. But this is definitely something that I think local government should be doing, and that's helping its citizens. So that's my take on it. I am willing to make the motion that we direct staff to prepare the service district ordinance, and I would put that forth in.
Are there any other further questions?
Just one clarification for Mr. Bryant. So, in order to enact this, we need up to 50% per Mr. Martin's suggestion of the landowners, not the ones actually living on the roads.
Well, if I may.
That's about 18 people. So,
If I may, and I also think it would be prudent to do it in conjunction with VDOT revenue sharing at this time, so.
If I may, I did not mention that. My apologies, Supervisor Martin. If you notice, in the road improvement article, it addresses the revenue tax sharing as well as a special assessment. It requires them to go through that process.
Madam Chair, Mr. Creasy, the only other question, just for factual information, if you have it, and you may not have it, and that's fine. Out of all these addresses or parcels on Victoria Drive, do you know how many of the individual parcels are owned? How should I word it? How many does one person own multiple parcels? I'll spit it out
Yes.
here eventually.
Great question. I believe there's three property owners that own more than one parcel along that road, or that have a deeded easement to access it.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right. Thank you, Mr. Creasy. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
and they would just count as one vote. Is that correct? Or would they count as three for the
I
individual?
would need to ask our county attorney on that one.
Good question.
I would recommend that it would be each individual lot.
They would need to sign up for both lots.
If they own 3 lots, they'd have to say, we
Three
hereby
votes?
put 3 votes in.
I would think we need to, you probably
So
need
we
to amend
would have to
your
amend-
motion, if you agree with that, Mr. Martin.
That each lot gets a vote. I mean, that's the way you figured it, correct?
Right. It just says, I don't have that one state code in front of me. It just indicates that 50% of all landowners abutting the parcel who have access to it have to sign up. So
Well, now, I see what you're getting at, Mr. Wade and Mr. Adams. I really think that it should be one owner, one vote. Is the
I
way-
would say so too.
Agree with
So
that.
for multiple parcels, one owner for multiple parcels, but one vote.
Correct.
Okay.
I think so, yes.
All right, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, Board.
Mr. Jeremy, you're going to speak to us about the windows
Yes, ma'am.
in the Monroe
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Center?
We've had over last fiscal year, this fiscal year, the Monroe Community Center needs new replacement windows. We were not able to fund them last year. We did get it, just for your own edification and some background information. We received a quote in December of 2023 that was going to cost $181,000 to replace those windows. We've also built it into this year's CIP. We put an escalator on that based on prices going up for fiscal year '26 of $210,000. As the schools just recently went out to bid for Amherst Elementary School, Amelon Central, Elon, Temperance, and Amherst Middle to replace all of those windows, they're using their own funds for that. But I asked the schools to partner with us, and in the bidding process, determine if we could gain economies of scale and save some money and get a snapshot of what those windows could look like. So that we've received a bid back for $104,000. And so if we use that number of 181,000 from 2023, we would save 77,596,000. If we use our CIP number that we've planned and budgeted for, that would be FY26, we'd save over $100,000. So again, the Monroe Window Community Center window replacement bid right now that's current is $104,170. What I'm asking you to do is I've partnered with Dr. Wells and his team, and you may recall that $1.2 million that the schools have unspent that they were going to bring back to us with ideas on how to use and/or provide it back to us for debt service. I'm giving you an option, and you can take it or leave it, but I think this was a good creative staff solution on how to save money by using economies of scale. So what I'm asking you to do is use a portion, $104,170,000 to fund the Monroe Community Center window project. And as the contractor's out here working on all these schools, he will replace the windows for the community center. We do need a new roof on that building. We're working on that as well. But this would be a big first step, and we think we've saved a good amount of money by trying to join this with the schools project.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. Board members, any questions?
How does the schools feel about the 100,000 coming out of the 1.2?
Great question. We met with them multiple times over this to make sure we were all on the same page before we brought this to you.
See, Dr. Wells has got a thumbs up back
Nodding.
there.
Okay, very good. We appreciate that. Yep.
Mr. Adams, I know this was something near and dear to your heart. Do you have any questions, any concerns?
Money is near and dear to my heart.
Lord, I
Madam-
know
Madam
that.
Chair. Yeah, money is very near and dear to me. So I got a couple comments and a couple questions reference this. By all means, we need to take care of our fixed assets. I think all of us can agree on that. The only thing that does bother me a little bit is that we as a board denied this project in the CIP for this budget year. And this is the second in 2 months of projects that came back to us that was in the CIP that we've been asked to fund mid-year. That bothers me, right? Now, a positive comment, which ironically enough was when I've been working through budget stuff, getting ready for the wonderful budget season, which you guys did in conjunction with the school system. That's what we need to be doing all the time, right? Because we can do much more bargaining in larger numbers. It's no reason that us as a county and the school system cannot partner on more stuff to save the taxpaying money. Plain and simple. No question about that. So that's one thing, that's a comment, and I mean, that really needs to be a directive going forward with anything. I know we need windows at Monroe Community Center. As I was up there training with public safety, trying to get some CEU hours not too long ago for my paramedic, it was a little drafty in there in spots, but Mr. Beam chewed some bubble gum real quick, and we adapted and overcome pretty well. But again, I'm going to support it reluctantly, but I really have a concern with coming back with these mid-year requests of this size. So hopefully we can curb this going forward.
Can I address that?
Yes. Mr.
I would like to address that, and Mr. Adams, I hear you, we try not to do that. It was an opportunity because the schools were going out for bid on all of these windows for all these schools, so we looked at it as an opportunity to try to save money, and that was the direction we took this, was we thought we could save money, we found out we could, and so we thought it was worthwhile to bring to your attention, if you so choose to.
No, and I applaud that. I applaud that type of action, Mr. Bryant. And again, we need to do that because here we are. We've got 2 projects in 2 months that we've saved. How much now? Because that light project was projected to cost us how much in the CIP?
A lot of money.
Yeah, and we got it for like 50% of that. And now we're looking down this, saving 50% again. This shouldn't happen this way. So that's all I got, Madam Chair.
Ms. Wade?
I'll just say, Mr. Bryant, I think what you and the staff have done here is, as Mr. Adams was saying, what we need more of. Any opportunities we have to save the taxpayer money and you put it to good use like this, I think it's great. So with that, I'll make a motion that the board approve the use of a portion of the 1.2 million leftover school project funds equal to the final cost of the center's window project for debt service and the transfer of the excess debt service budget to the Monroe Community Center window project.
Motion on the floor, but before we get to the next point, Mr. Martin, I believe you had a question?
Well, I
or
didn't get a
comment?
chance to speak, but I appreciate that. So I understand what Mr. Adams is saying, and I am a firm believer that we should budget, yet I also firmly believe and support our staff being creative and looking for ways of getting things done. Absolutely, and I will not ever fault you for that. And if you look at the next 1, 2, 3, 4 things on our agenda, right, the majority of which are not because of something like this saving money, right? It is what it is. So I fully support this. We were not able to do it at the last budget, in the last budget year because of, you have to make choices, right? Staff found a way to make it work in partnering with the schools, and we appreciate that. So I fully support the motion by Mr. Wade.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Wade. We'll proceed to vote on that now. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. And again, Mr. Bryan, I want to thank you and staff for the creativity and the tenacity that you pursued this. And I want to also thank Dr. Wells and his staff. Thank you. All right, moving on. We've got carryover from the Manelson Rescue funding.
Good morning, or good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you for letting us come today. As you all know, over the last several months, we've been working really closely with the corporate board from Manelson Volunteer Fire Department and the former Manelson Volunteer Rescue Squad. The rescue squad, had obviously ceased to operate. We've had a really close relationship with their board of directors. And trying to be creative of how we continue to potentially use that building, and really nice interim step to put our staff in that building until we find out what our future looks like. So with that, part of it is that we're looking at their board potentially donating their ambulances to us. We're working through that as well. Part of this funds would be used to re-letter those ambulances, which is required by Virginia Office of EMS, and then to do some minor modifications to the building to make it suitable for our staff to go into. As you recall, last year, we had held these funds as the rescue squad was trying to determine what their future looked like. We'd asked to hold these funds and going forward, and to we'd come back at a later time. And so that's what this time is. We're just coming back, and this is what we've asked. And I believe Mr. Adams specifically had asked this one to be added as a creative way to fund some of those things. Any questions?
Board members, any question?
So, and Mr. Beam, I zoned out for just a second there, so I just want to make sure, as far as what we had initially, did you mention why we set that money aside as carry forward from the get-go when we talked about it?
I did not go into detail if you
So
want to.
I think it's important that we discuss where those funds came from. So those monies were from last fiscal year from the operating line item for the rescue squad that each volunteer agency gets for their operating funds throughout the year. However, at the time we were doing the budget season last spring, Chief Beam and myself and the corporate board at Manelson, along with the rescue squad, was trying to work through a performance improvement plan, for lack of better words, to try to enhance their operations. Obviously, that did not come to fruition. So we were going to be distributing that money on a as requested basis, for lack of better words, for them based on what their performance was on a monthly or quarterly basis. We didn't ever get to establish a time parameter associated with that. So that's where the monies were left over, and it was just kind of left there in limbo for those needs. But I think without having Chief Beam's budget, obviously, as we're going to get to the next line item, is pretty strapped. But this is a good way that it doesn't affect our unobligated general fund any further for his upgrades that he needs to make to the station to accommodate our four to five career folks on the south end. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's an unfortunate situation that we lost another volunteer rescue squad. That obviously I had a bunch of time in through the years, as well as some others in this room. However, from a county aspect, we appreciate the cooperation from the corporate board to allow us to work with them to utilize that fixed asset to where we can start housing our people in the rescue squad building. And definitely we appreciate the rolling assets that are being donated to the county. That's going to be a huge relief to Chief Beam and his day-to-day operations. So anyway, Madam Chair, I appreciate your time to comment on that.
Yeah, and a question for you, Mr. Adams.
Yes, sir.
Emergency Services Council is perfectly aware, they're aware of this, they're supportive. Has it gone to them? How does that work?
So with this ordeal right here, the way the Emergency Services Council is composed, they really didn't have to vote on this action. This was an action that was really taken up by the corporate board.
Okay.
So it was a true partnership between us and the corporate board.
I certainly do appreciate the way that you all worked together and facilitated that. And, it was unfortunate, but I cannot imagine a better outcome in the way it was handled. So thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support there too, Mr. Adams. Mr. Martin?
Madam Chair, so Chief Beam, my understanding is that this would allow our career staff to move back into the rescue building.
Yes, sir.
Where they're currently being housed at the fire building across the
Yes, sir.
parking lot there. So I also know that in our current fiscal year, we had funding in place for site assessments essentially for a new rescue squad building for our career staff.
Yes, sir.
Where does this fall in line with that?
That's a great question, Chief. So we've been working with them on a 36-month lease. What this would be, give us time to determine what that need is. As you know, we're doing some of that feasibility stuff. Mr. Bryant and I met just about that exact thing last week. They still retain ownership. It gives us 36 months. We won't do a lot of modifications to the building, so we have a lot of capital assets tied up. The things that we would do in the building are put up a couple of fire doors from the bedrooms to make sure there's separation there to the bay space. But this is 36 months, gives us time to determine what that looks like.
That gives us a little breathing room.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Great breathing room.
Very good. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Madam Chair, I think to tag on to Mr. Martin's comments, that money, Mr. Bryant, was that in this current fiscal year for the engineering studies that was it $60-some thousand that we?
I think it's 40-some thousand or in there.
40-some thousand.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So I think the board members, and obviously we'll probably discuss this further in the budget, Chief Bean and Mr. Bryant and I have had some pretty productive conversations discussing this, because this truly buys us some time. Because if you guys remember, I think it was in FY '27 is where we had the $6.7 million set aside for a new public safety building on the south end. So I don't think I'm stepping too far on the proverbial limb, but I think this buys us a little bit of time to not have to potentially pursue that as early as we projected. So,
Yeah, and it would at least give us time through the construction phase and everything, whatever we decide to do. To your point, breathing room was great. The fire department's been great to us, but as you know, our folks have had to transverse the steps upstairs, downstairs at night, go outside to a separate building. This truly puts us back under one roof. But I'd be remiss if I did not mention the fire department and how great their hospitality's been. True partnership.
Good. All right, board members, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the carryover money to be directed to Amherst County Fire and EMS to where they can use it for the upfitting of the rescue squad building.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Adams. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. And you're back again.
I'm back again. Thank you very much. Again, I think one of the board members alluded to tight budget. As you all know, last year you all blessed us with adding 13 new positions, 12 for field operations. When we hire those folks, the minimum is that they have the EMS training minimum to come through the door. They have to have that on day one. We give them 18 months to get their firefighter one, and we always try to do that internally with our Amherst County Fire Academy, which is going on right now. So we kind of have another double-edged sword. A lot of times in the past, if we've had folks to go through that and, it's mandatory training, so we're having to pay them overtime, we've had some cost savings from salaries because we weren't fully staffed. I'm excited to report that we're completely staffed. We're fully staffed. And matter of fact, we have a waiting list of part-time folks who want to come on full-time. So that creates a little bit of a bind when we butt up against that in the budget because we don't have the overtime funds that we'll need to get these 8 folks through firefighter one. We've done all we can to one of the trucks goes on duty. Sometimes it doesn't always work out very well, but trying to reduce overtime all that we can. But we are requesting $70,000 to make sure that we don't think it'll be that much, but make sure we're able to cover the overtime associated with firefighter one and the fire academy. And we're requesting that from unobligated funds in this current year budget, not asking for them outside of this budget, but funds within this budget.
Any questions of the chief?
No questions for the chief, Madam Chair, but I guess to follow up with what we had just talked about, and I hadn't thought about this when we were reviewing the packet, but would it be appropriate, because I don't think we're going to use engineering fees this year that we had set aside, correct?
We have not used them yet. Mr. Bryant and I literally had a conversation last week about some forecasting and things, but I think we could potentially forego and not have to use them this year if we wanted to push that into next year's.
So, Mr. Bryant, what would be yours and Ms. McBride's thought process about taking the funds that we set aside in the CIP for engineering instead of pulling the money out of the unobligated general fund, if I'm reading this correctly, and use those funds? Use it from that line versus what you've proposed?
What is proposed is actually money that's in the operating budget.
Okay.
If you take the CIP money, that's going to reduce your unobligated general fund balance at the end of the day. So we had a little bit left over when we budgeted last year, and we just put it in a transfer line to make the budget balance. And then I have spoken with another department head that had some vacancy savings, so we were going to pull that from that payroll line. So it's not coming out of what's been sitting there for years. Your CIP money comes from what's been sitting there for years. So if you leave the CIP money alone, it stays in your unobligated general fund balance. You're only spending your recurring money right now.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Not really, but we'll go with it.
We're only spending recurring money right now if we do it this way. We're not touching fund balance
Okay.
with the current appropriation written this way.
So if we don't use that engineering money, it'll just sit there in perpetuity?
It'll roll back into your general fund.
Okay, all right. The only other question, I'm assuming, just for clarification and from perception standpoint, I'm assuming the treasurer is aware of the funds being pulled from that office, correct? Yes. Okay.
She called, yeah.
All right, no further questions.
Any other questions, board members?
No questions, but I will say, I understand where Mr. Adams is coming from, but, I think long-term, we need to continue to fund, look forward to planning for a station for our career public safety personnel. So while this may have bought us some time, I don't think we should ignore it.
Oh, absolutely.
So I wouldn't have supported taking that funding from there anyway, but I do support this motion. So, do you need a motion?
We need a
Yeah,
motion.
we need a motion.
Well, do I need to declare? Well, I'll just say it anyway. I'm the chief of Amherst Fire Department, actually teaching that academy, but this does not affect me in any way. And I think I can vote, help me here a little
Mr.
bit.
County Attorney, would you speak, please?
That you will be able to make a decision without bias.
Without bias, that's me. So I would move the board transfer $70,000 into the public safety operating budget for overtime as described.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next we're going to move to legal services funding for sheriff deputies. I know that board members have some questions that they want to ask of various people. I'm going to start off with a preface here that in the last 18 months or so, Amherst County has seen an unusually high number of Brady letters. And for those of you in the audience and those of you watching YouTube that don't know what a Brady letter is, I'm going to try to make something very complicated as simple as I can. A Brady letter is issued by a Commonwealth's attorney or law enforcement officer if that law enforcement officer has shown acts of moral turpitude or has been dishonest or has lied. Obviously, we want the best of the best in our sheriff's department. We want men and women that we know are truthful so that when they stand up in a court of law, we don't question what they're saying. We know that what they're saying is true. It has to do with integrity. A Brady letter is issued against an officer if it's found that they have done something that questions that integrity. As I said, we have had 5 here in the last year and a half, and I've done my research, and others are welcome to do theirs. Prior to this, Amherst County had not had any Brady letters. So it's an unusual set of circumstances here. A Brady letter is considered a career killer for a law enforcement officer. It's an unusual set of circumstances here in Amherst County in that the Commonwealth's attorney and several of them said that I would not have any problem listening to this person and supporting this law enforcement's testimony in the court in Amherst County. That's highly unusual, but that's the way it was done. At least one of those individuals did not get that disclaimer, and it resulted in the loss of his job. If a law enforcement officer who had that disclaimer in there wanted to go to a different department outside of Amherst County, they would probably face a big problem. Therefore, it's why it's referred to as a career killer. I have a dog in this fight for one reason only, and that is I want to make sure that our sheriff has the ability to recruit the best of the best, and that he can recruit the number of deputies that he feels that he needs to protect the citizens of Amherst County. If we're in an environment where a deputy is afraid to come to Amherst County because they're afraid of being Brady'd, we have a problem. That's why this board is involved. I'm speaking for myself, board members, you all can certainly speak to that, but that's why we're here today. And because this is a complex situation, I think that we all need to have an environment where we can ask questions and learn more about this. So the question before us, 2 things. One, we felt so strongly about this that this board fully supported Senate Bill 1294. And unfortunately, the bill did not pass this year. We fully expect that bill to come back next year. This board gave it its full support. What that would do would allow a law enforcement officer to have due process. A law enforcement officer, if he receives a Brady letter, does not have a route of appeal. He can't go to a judge. He can't go to his boss. There's nothing he can do. He is dead in the water, so to speak. And you think to Mr. Cam's and Mr. Stanley's, this is America. One would think if you were accused of something, you would have some way to refute it, especially if the facts laid against you were not true. But they don't. And my heart feels for them. So we've got a couple that would like to seek legal advice. As we all know, lawyers are expensive. These men and women would not find themselves in this situation if they were not working for the County of Amherst, if they were not putting their lives on the line to support the citizens of Amherst. I think the very least we can do is offer to pay for their legal services. And that's what we're here to discuss today. Board members, is there anything else that you all want to add as a preface before we call anyone up? Okay. All right. Then we will call first the Commonwealth's Attorney. Thank you for being here, Mr. Carver.
Absolutely.
So if you want to, if you just want to start out with kind of a summary of where you think we are, and then leave it open for questions from board members, does that work for you?
That's fine, yeah, whatever pleases the board. All right, so I'll try to just summarize a little bit. I'm here for questions. We keep saying it's a complicated issue, and I guess in some ways it is, but it's also a legal issue that litigators that deal with routinely, prosecutors, defense attorneys, judges. So we're trained about it on law school, and we trained about it at continuing legal education, et cetera. So I understand that the people in this room don't get that same amount of training, but to those of us in the industry, we do. Brady is not anti-law enforcement. The Sixth Amendment, it's about the Sixth Amendment, and the Sixth Amendment protects a defendant's constitutional rights. We can't lose sight of the fact that this is a constitutional right that we're dealing with. We like to pick our favorite constitutional rights, whether it's Second Amendment and our gun rights, and we get all fired up, or maybe free speech and we get all excited, but we don't really pick and choose with the Constitution. So this is another constitutional right, the Sixth Amendment. I personally am extremely pro-law enforcement. I've dedicated my entire career to working with law enforcement as a prosecutor here in Amherst County. But just because I'm pro-law enforcement doesn't mean that I get to ignore the Sixth Amendment, or I don't uphold the oath that I've taken to support and defend our Constitution. So what is Brady? Brady is just kind of the language you get that we use to do it. It's actually a line of cases. Giglio is another case. Feds actually use the case Giglio more than they use Brady, but there's a couple lines of cases all dealing with the Sixth Amendment rights of a defendant. It just means that anything that is impeachment testimony, impeachment evidence against a witness, or anything exculpatory has to be disclosed. I cannot hide evidence. This isn't like movies or TV where the prosecutor gets to hide whatever that hurts their case. I can't hide that. I can't pretend something doesn't exist. I have to disclose everything. There's no sort of like gotcha prosecution. I have to disclose it. So that is what I do. We keep talking about it being anti-law enforcement, or how dare we, what have they done? This actually has nothing to do with law enforcement. Law enforcement officers just happen to be the most frequent witnesses in criminal cases. This is a defendant's right to confront and cross-examine their accusers, but that can be a civilian citizen witness. It can be any member in this room as a witness, and it would have to be disclosed whether they're law enforcement or not. The next most common after law enforcement, because law enforcement obviously is the most common, they testify in the most cases, and when you have a deputy pull over 300 people for a speeding ticket, no random citizen is going to come into court 300 times on a criminal case. It won't happen. So obviously deputies or officers in general deal with this the most, but we also get letters from the Department of Forensic Science that we have to disclose. So if one of their analysts has testified wrong in one court, all Commonwealth attorneys get letters because we have to disclose that if they're a witness on any of our cases. And that's another important point, is it has to do with when they are witnesses. It is a defendant's right. So this isn't a bash people in the public thing. This isn't a out to get someone's career. This is just a defendant's rights. So I have to disclose if there is anything impeachment or otherwise exculpatory, which could mean someone just botched this case, not lied generally, or not was a racist, or has a substance abuse issue or something like that. But I have to disclose that on the case where they're going to be a witness. So if they're not going to be a witness, there's nothing for me to ever disclose. So that's a little bit of how they work. This is something that law enforcement understands, and better as the more we have to deal with this, they understand because they deal with it the most. I know they understand because I teach law enforcement. I teach at the Central Virginia Criminal Justice Academy. In every class, I teach at least one session, and in that session, even if off topic, I talk about Brady, and we make sure they understand because it is a difficult world that they are entering, and they're held to a standard that most people are not held to. Most people, if they lie on something, don't automatically get fired. They don't automatically have a letter drafted. They don't automatically have these things. That can happen to law enforcement. But when it comes to hiring and firing, a lot is said about the Commonwealth Attorney this, the Commonwealth Attorney that. I have no ability to hire or fire within the Sheriff's Office or Town Police for that matter. That's not in my bailiwick. So, I can speak to other things. It might be better just to answer questions the board has, because if I ramble on and it's something that y'all don't care about, I've wasted everyone's time. So why don't I just answer whatever
Thank you,
questions
Mr.
y'all have.
Carver. Board members?
I have a question. Mr. Carver, thanks for coming. I really appreciate that. So I looked at these 5 Brady letters, and it looked like a couple of them, at least 2, they called into work, right? And then for some reason, it was found out that the reason they gave was not the real reason they weren't at work.
Right.
Right. Which to me, I get it, you know, you're giving infactual information, but really? You know, I mean, okay, if you were behind one of these deputies and they threw a piece of gum out the window that you knew broke the law, right,
Right.
because it's littering,
Right.
you going to issue a Brady letter on for that?
The only way that would come up as Brady is if they lied and said they did not do that, or if they were dealing with a case that tended to be exculpatory. If they were working a different littering case and it somehow became relevant that they had done that. But no, I've never had something like that come up as Brady, but that's how that scenario could trigger Brady.
I've been preaching for years, don't litter, so there you go.
That's valuable.
Don't call in sick inappropriately.
And don't call in sick inappropriately. Yeah.
That's actually what I teach at the academy specifically, is that example.
I mean, I get the whole higher standard thing too, but yeah, okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, I appreciate that.
Board members?
I've got a few questions. I guess before I proceed, any Brady letter is foiable, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I want to make sure that we don't have information that is held like in the closed session under personnel or anything like that. So make sure, I want to clear that up. So you said a moment ago that Brady is not specific to law enforcement.
Correct.
So you're saying is if I was called as a witness on a court case, then you could, if you had reason to do so, you could issue a Brady letter against me, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So how will those findings be determined?
Well, I should qualify that a little. I wouldn't issue it against you. I would write a letter to the defense counsel explaining that there's a reason that your testimony could be challenged in court from a previous lie.
Okay. That's interesting because that really opens up Pandora's box, correct? Because I mean, personally, obviously I've been in public safety now for about 35 years, and I have to stand witness on cases that I'm involved with in the city of Lynchburg as a paramedic.
Okay.
And some of the folks that were also called to witness, we knew were not the most upstanding of citizens, right?
Right.
But no Brady's were issued on those. So that's where, for me, that when you made that statement, I just wanted some clarification on that because that's, I mean, really and truly, that could open up, again, Pandora's box where you could spend a gang of time identifying your witnesses to whether to defend or not defend their character in that case, correct? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched Law and Order. That's the extent of where I go, all right?
I understand.
I know just enough to be dangerous. But if someone is called as a witness, I mean, it's also the other party's job to basically obliterate their credibility to support their client, right?
Well, when they can challenge someone's credibility, certainly a defense attorney wants to do that, but I also have to put on credible evidence. I can't put on evidence, like ethical rules don't allow me to put on evidence that is not credible. And I also can't hide things.
Okay. Secondly, what is the parameters for notifying a law enforcement agency or I'm sure that's not the right terminology, but it's my Amherst language coming out, the Brady, right? What is the time parameters on that? Because I'm going to use a specific example, and I'm going back to my initial question to make sure that these were foilable documents. It's my understanding from doing some research on this that the sheriff's office knew of 4 they knew of 4 officers that they had, physically knew of 4 officers that they had were Brady's, right?
Right.
But they had heard that it was a 5th, but they didn't know who it was.
Okay.
So once we received those Brady letters yesterday, we figured out who the 5th was. And from what I understand, that individual, that officer didn't realize that he was Brady'd until last week. Now, if the documents serve me correctly and that we have, the Brady letter was issued August the 24th of 2024.
It was August. I can go back and look at the date, but yes, August.
Yeah, I was looking at it.
Yes, correct.
What is it?
26.
So, excuse me, I was off 2 days. 26. I could be Brady'd for that. So, so what is the responsibility from a Commonwealth Attorney's Office if I'm an officer and I'm getting Brady'd? Is that something important enough that the officer know, the officer and the hiring agency know immediately? Because from what I understand, this did not come up when the officer was hired back in April.
No, there's no notice requirement. You're asking me different questions, but is there a notice requirement? No, there's not.
They're all tied together.
Yeah. Yeah, there is no notice requirement. I historically gave notice, which is why the first four in the conversation I had with the sheriff about the first four, notice was not provided for the fifth.
Is there a reason?
But isn't that important? What if that officer was
To protect the defendant's
testifying in a-
rights? No, it's not important to protect the defendant's rights, which is what Brady is a Constitution, Sixth Amendment right. So what's important is to notify the defendant. That fulfills the constitutional requirements. Senate Bill.
The defendant being the person receiving the Brady, correct?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
No,
Oh,
see,
the other part.
That's where we're
okay.
getting confused here is because.
No, I'm not confused. I'm making sure I got my terminology right.
Okay.
So I understand what you're saying now. The other party that may be involved with that officer. I get that, correct?
Right, the defendant in the
Yes,
criminal
right,
case.
okay.
Yes.
So if that officer is never involved in a criminal case where he has to go as a witness,
Right.
then he could hypothetically never know that he's ever been Brady'd. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's wrong. And I mean, and I'm not directing that to you, Mr. Carver, but if that's the process amongst the Commonwealth of Virginia, or if that's the federal statutes, that is wrong, that an officer could go his entire career and not know that this is hanging over his head.
Well,
That is wrong.
It would be difficult to come up with a scenario where he wouldn't know. It'd be difficult to think that he didn't know he was under an internal affairs investigation. The investigation didn't have a finding. In this particular case, the one you're referring to, the letter was not issued by me, so it could have been, he could have received notice from the other jurisdiction. I don't know that answer. But by me, I did not provide notice, no, and is not required. Senate Bill 1274, so if anyone wants to look that up, it got passed by for the year. It was referred to earlier by the wrong number, but if anyone's looking for it, it's Senate Bill 1274. That was one of the provisions under, I believe, I'm not looking at it, but I believe it was A, had started right off with a notice requirement. So there could, in future law, be a notice requirement. And hopefully that bill gets put back together in committee and we actually get the shareholders in the room to get it right. And next year this might be fixed, but no, there is no requirement of notice to the police officer. But I can't speak to if the actual issuing jurisdiction provided notice or not.
I guess I'm going to ask as an individual.
Okay.
If I were in your shoes. If this is done, even though there's no statute or law or requirement to do that, if you could objectively take yourself and put yourself in that officer's shoes, wouldn't you want to know that pretty quick and not 6 months later?
I would think I would know that if I was in that officer's shoes.
Okay. All right, no further questions, Madam Chair.
Mr. Wade?
All righty. I got a ton of questions, so bear with me. All right.
For all day.
First off, how many officers in Amherst County are you aware of that have Brady letters? Or is it any more than the 5 that we have information on?
We've issued 5 Brady letters.
Yeah. To your knowledge, have these letters impacted their ability to serve as officers? Has it impacted their duties or responsibilities that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. To my knowledge, they're all still working and they're have hold positions of seniority.
Okay. One of the citizens said there was some public shaming associated with this. Are you aware of any public shaming from the Commonwealth Attorney's Office?
Not from my office and not directed towards law enforcement. Some feels like it might be happening, but not towards them.
Okay. You answered that, so I'm not going to ask that one. Can you speak to the nature of these letters for the 5, just so everybody's aware? I'm not asking you to identify individuals. Perhaps you could bucket what the 5 are for.
Okay, and I appreciate that because I would rather not identify individuals because this isn't some sort of witch hunt. This isn't some sort of gotcha. This is just me fulfilling my constitutional requirements and ethical duties, keeping my law license, and preserving the criminal cases against the defendants. So yeah, I can speak to it. We have one deputy who received a Brady letter for, as was mentioned earlier by Mr. Martin, for inconsistent statements about why he was not at work. It's kind of the very generic version of that. Made 2 statements. The 2 statements could not be true. Could not both be true. Either one theoretically could be true, but the 2 could not be true. That deputy is a fantastic officer who I actually recommended for his job, and he's one of their shining stars within the department. But that doesn't mean I didn't have to constitutionally write a Brady letter, so there's one there. Another one lied under oath, and a special prosecutor looked into it and said that he lied under oath. It did not authorize perjury charges, but did say something to the effect of his statement, while not true. But I believe that's attached, so you can see the exact language. I'm not looking at it. But so false statement under oath for the second one. The third one, and that last one I said was a special prosecutor made that call, not me. The first one was me. The second one was a special prosecutor from another jurisdiction. The third one, while working in another jurisdiction, was caught in some sort of lie about coming to work and made some false statements there. That investigation showed it. That person then changed jurisdictions to another jurisdiction. That Commonwealth attorney did not know it. It kind of fell through the cracks. And then I was notified by that county when that deputy came here that they had found out, but it was now my issue to handle, not their issue to handle, because they did not know it while they still had cases with that deputy. So I was notified from that jurisdiction that I had to take action. We reviewed the internal affairs file in the first jurisdiction to verify it and wrote that letter. The fourth one was from another county. That person had 2 different letters issued from another county, so I just wrote a cover letter to go with the 2 letters I received from that county. And the last one, the fifth one, what a Brady letter was issued from the previous jurisdiction where that person worked. They sent me the full letter. I didn't have to write I did write a cover letter, but they sent me their Brady letter that they issued. And obviously, if I receive a Brady letter from someone else, ethically, I can't hide that. I have to disclose that. That's not optional. So that would be the fifth one.
All right. Well, I'm going to get into the timing of this here in just a minute.
Okay.
But to your knowledge, has your office issued any other Brady letters over the last 10 years or that you're aware of?
Actual letters issued, there's one previous, I don't know that ever went to a defendant or not. So I don't know. So issued would really be, was it provided in a court case? And I'd have to check to see if it was provided in a court case or not.
Okay. All right, so let's get into the timing of these. Let's start with the August 26th one.
Okay.
That letter was provided to you from Lynchburg.
Correct.
You then turned out a letter that same day.
I'll have to check the date, but very quickly, if not the same day, but I'm looking for it.
Based on what I've seen, it's the same day.
Okay, it was provided to you, so y'all should have that.
There was another one. You received a letter from Lynchburg in January of '24. You then, in turn, drafted your letter in February.
believe that's right, yes.
January 5th to February 22nd. So let's talk timing there.
Okay.
Why the delay? Was there some type of investigation going on, or I guess why did it take so long to issue your letter?
I would say a mountain of research.
Okay.
Making sure we had it right. The timing for the letter is triggered by someone being a witness in a criminal case.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as they're not testifying, we're okay. If they, like, for example, if the sheriff's office is doing an investigation right now, I don't need to know the results of the investigation if that deputy is not a witness yet. So there has to be some trust back and forth, because if they have court coming up tomorrow, they better tell me something quickly or ask me to continue those cases in the meantime, because I'm held to know what the sheriff's office knows. So in this case, it would have been making sure everything is done correctly, and we were dealing with a few at the same time and just getting them all together. So that's what that would have been, but.
All right, there's another one. You received a letter from Nelson. That was February of '24. Your letter was issued March 18th, same year.
Okay.
And then the other two were from your office, both in February. So can you speak to why these were issued in what appears to be all 2024? What led to these other than being witnesses?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing I can say to that, or the clearest way I can say that, is that that's when they were working in Amherst. So the first one I mentioned, prior to 2024, had worked at Amherst previously, but it had been a couple years, and actually the letter was about why he left Amherst. So that one couldn't have been done prior to him starting back in 2024. Y'all probably can get a hold of the hiring dates. I don't know that off the top of my head, but
It's going to be my next question.
it would have definitely been 2024, because he came back under Sheriff Ayers. The second one did not work here, had not worked here for a while before coming back in January of 2024. The third one never worked here prior to January of 2024. And again, you have to verify that. I don't know exactly what day any of these people started, but the second one, I presume, started January 1st, but the others I don't know exactly. So the third one, as I mentioned, never worked here previously. I would have no reason to know the person, never had a case with the person. I don't know him. The fourth one, worked in another jurisdiction, never worked here previously, at least not in my 17 years here. And the last one came well into the year. I don't know exactly when, but the one that was issued in August, that person didn't start till well into 2024, but I don't remember when, but he wasn't one of the original, like, new people in January kind of thing.
Okay, so they're close, if not, right in line with their hire date. Is that what I'm hearing?
They would be, I mean, you could look at that. They'd be relatively close, but also there's a little window of time of, like, they don't have court cases yet.
Right.
Let's get, when we are told the information, the flow of information has not always been seamless. So we have to get the information to, I'm ethically held to know everything. Even this body knows. I'm held to know that. Where it comes up the most is with the sheriff's office, just due to the volume of cases, but I don't always know, but I'm held to know.
All right, thank you. Next question. Seeing that the majority of these came from other districts, or Lynchburg, Nelson, wherever, I'm sure you've had an opportunity to talk to your peers about this.
I have.
What are their thoughts on the, I guess, everything this is churning up? What are their thoughts on you issuing these? I mean, do they have thoughts?
I'm sorry, I'm going through it. Don't understand the politics of Amherst and why I'm being attacked. Wonder why I'm taking the heat for something they did. Then, others outside the area would say, and as Ms. Tucker said earlier, others haven't necessarily issued Brady letters. One of the ones I talked to said he has not issued a Brady letter. But the reason he hasn't is because when this issue comes up, he just goes and talks to the sheriff and says, I will have to write a letter that says blah, 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 and if this person ever testifies, and then they are either transferred to a position where they won't come to court or they're let go. And so he said, I haven't issued one, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't or haven't had the facts to. I just have never had to take the next step.
So had your peers had to review these situations, how would they have drafted the letter? I mean, you put language, let me, hold on a second. You put language in there that you'll still accept these individuals to be able to prosecute cases and call them as witnesses. How would they have addressed these? Would they have done something similar?
It would depend on the person. I've received some feedback that's more like, these are spot on, exactly what you need to do. And I've also received some feedback that I was too nice, and by being nice, that's why I'm facing this, because I should have ripped the Band-Aid and written it, I will not call you as a witness. And I was told by others that's the way they write them. They would not write them any other way. And I did not think that was ethically required. I thought with the disclosure, and still think, based on our research, that with the disclosure, I did not have to take that next step.
All right, last question for you, for now. Hypothetically speaking, given what we know now about the Sixth Amendment and the way the law is written currently, what would an appeal process look like? And if the officers were able to appeal these somehow or get some judge to make a ruling on it, would the letters be disregarded or expunged, or what would that look like?
Okay, so right now there isn't an appeal process. That was the goal of Senate Bill 1274, was to create some sort of appeal type process. Appeal is probably the wrong word, but some sort of review process. The problem with that, and one of the problems with that bill, is that it didn't adequately address, there's quite a few problems with that bill, but one of the problems was it didn't adequately address what happens, like even if in that one someone opines, which in that case, in that bill suggested the circuit court judge, opines that the Commonwealth attorney abused their discretion, that wouldn't alleviate the constitutional rights of the defendant. So probably what would have happened, even though the bill wanted it to say that letter goes away, probably what would have happened with that bill is that you just have two competing things that get presented to the defendant. One says the Commonwealth attorney abused their discretion, and one says this person did blah, blah, blah that's being disclosed. Is probably how that would have played out. But that would have required that bill to pass, which is why, and it's a complicated issue. And everyone seems to agree we should do something. So it's not really, the concept isn't at issue, it's just the language of the bill. We have to get it right because you're trying to have the legislature limit a constitutional right. So obviously, that's not how our system works, so we have to be very careful to get it right. But that's why the bill is going to be studied for this year, and hopefully something can be done. My assumption is that the same board in Richmond that does the decertifications of law enforcement will probably be the one that review the letters. They would probably get involved because that would be the group with the right expertise to do it probably when this bill comes back up. And certainly several of the people in that committee would be the right people in the room to discuss it and get it right, to come up with some sort of review process.
All right, so that's if the bill
That'll be a year.
passes.
That'll be close to a year from
Yeah.
now. That's right.
What about now? If we approve this, this item here to fund the sheriff's deputies for legal services, where does that get the county?
It's kind of hard to say. There isn't a clear answer to that. Brady letters are done within a prosecutor, and we say Commonwealth attorney as if they just have to be mine. Any prosecutor could do it. So like if I left today, any prosecutor in my place would have to do the same thing. Like they would have to do the same thing, an independent decision on every case. Even if I said, all right, I'm not going to do this letter, every prosecutor in my office would have to agree because their law license would be on the line just like mine is. So, but where would it be? It's hard to really imagine. Maybe an attempt at a lawsuit against whoever issued it, maybe. But we have immunity, so I don't really. It's hard to imagine where that would go. But it could, I guess, conceptually, could be the county funds a county employee to sue the county, and hire attorneys on both sides to fight it out and then get it dismissed based on immunity. It would be my guess. Or the county hires an attorney for a law enforcement officer here to sue another jurisdiction, and we're fighting it out with the other that's conceptually, but I can't really tell because there isn't really a clear answer to that because it's just me supporting the Constitution, and doing my job.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that's all for now.
Thank you. All right, I've got a couple of questions. Mr. Carver, you and I have talked at least twice, as far as I can recollect, maybe 3 times, I don't know.
Yes, ma'am.
And several.
Yes.
And I truly believe that when I talk to you, I mean, I wanted to just get past all of this. I want you to work with the sheriff. I want the sheriff to work with you. I want our citizens to be served. That's what I want. I want our deputies to not be afraid. I want the best deputies to possibly come here.
Yes, sir.
So, I'm going to talk about Lou Goldman, and I feel comfortable using his name because he's been in the paper and he's been on the news, and and he has given me an opportunity to talk to him and talk about this. So we now know that what happened to Mr. Goldman should never have happened, that the initial investigation was fraught with errors. The initial investigation left very little to go back and look at. And so Sheriff Ayers did another investigation, interviewed a lot of people, recorded the interviews, and from my very amateurish position here, it looked pretty solid to me. So let's just go on the assumption that what happened to Mr. Goldman should not have happened. And you're saying that, because you and I have talked about this, that there's nothing you can do about it. Yet a man, and I'll disagree with you when you said that nobody's been harmed. That man was harmed. He lost his job, he lost his livelihood, he lost his retirement for something that we now know didn't happen. He was not there where he said he was. It was less than 10 seconds of interaction with, unfortunately, your wife. And I'm going to keep her out of it because she,
You wouldn't have mentioned her if you were trying to keep her out of it. Go ahead.
well, how else am I going to say person A? So,
I mean, you keep saying we now know. We don't know. That's not what
wait
we
a minute.
know.
Okay, Mr. Carver, what do we not know? Do you believe that Mr. Goldman was guilty of what he was accused of in that original Brady letter?
Of course he was. Of course he was.
You
Just,
believe-
just because the news runs some like hit piece article, that
Like
doesn't
hit?
supplant a legal review. That doesn't, a legal review was done by Nelson County, and they deemed no action should be taken based on this poor investigation. So the poor investigation was the second one. So I'm going to go with the legal review, not go with some news station hit piece that we like to keep citing as if it's some sort of authority. And we like to keep saying, you say you're very amateurish understanding, but yet you keep saying, we now know, we now know. How do you know it if you just acknowledge you don't know?
I do know. No, I do, because I saw the video, and who they thought was Mr. Goldman was not Mr. Goldman. I also listened to the testimony of the people who were there. I trust Mr. Sam Bryant implicitly. Trust all the people that were interviewed. And, you know, you didn't do the interview, and I get that. I get that. You trusted the people that worked for you. I understand that. But sometimes mistakes are made.
I agree.
They're made in my line of work. They've got to be made in your line of work.
Of course.
And in this case, I believe, okay, that Mr. Goldman was harmed, that what was said against him was absolutely untrue. But you said that you can't get rid of the Brady letter. You can't make it go away. And you and I were at the same meeting Monday a week ago.
Right.
And somebody came to me and said, hey, I thought he said that he could, if presented with evidence, get rid of the Brady letter. And I said, did you say that?
I did.
Okay, well, it's my bad ears. Okay, so you did say that.
Yeah, I mean.
And so you don't think you have enough evidence to get rid of the Brady letter against Mr. Goldman?
No, because the legal review said no. But, yes, I'm holding a random Brady letter in my hand. I can tear up this letter and never present it again. And if I'm right in tearing up whichever letter I'm holding, which is just randomly grabbed, but if I'm right in tearing this one up, fine. Nothing ever comes of it because I was right. If I'm wrong, I have concealed evidence, I've violated a defendant's constitutional rights, I'm probably going to lose my law license, and whatever case that I've done that on is going to be dismissed. Victims will not get justice, the defendant goes free. Yes, so I can tear up this letter, and if I'm wrong, all of those negative things happen. I'm not going to do that.
All right, because I could have sworn when I was with you one time, I think, Mr. Adams, you were there one time, that you told us you could not get rid of a Brady letter. It was impossible.
Well, we had that same conversation there about I can tear it up and lose my law license and all of that stuff, and we had like an hour and a half of fun conversation that day.
All right, next question. Did you, okay, the Senate bill that we were just speaking about, do you support a pathway for law enforcement to have their side heard?
Yes, as long as it's consistent with the Constitution, absolutely. But we probably should have prosecutors in the room to help make sure that happens. We probably should have the judiciary in the room to help make sure that happens. We probably should have defense attorneys in the room. We probably should have law enforcement, whether it's sheriffs or chiefs of police. We need a lot of people in the smart people, much smarter people than me in the room to make sure this goes right.
And Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Mr. Carver, I'm going to have to agree with you on that. Because in these Brady letters, we can truly see the inconsistency amongst your peers, right?
I don't think so, but
Well, I mean, when you have officers that work in a jurisdiction for an undisclosed amount of time, right?
right.
And they're never issued a Brady letter in that jurisdiction, and it's not until they arrive here that we determine that the Brady letter is there. And the one that came from Nelson, based on what I'm looking at, is one of those examples.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure I follow, but
Well, that's pretty simple. I'm just saying, this officer worked in a locality for some time, and I'm not sure, because this thing dates back, I'm not sure if this is when this is a memorandum.
he also works here, though.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is he worked in Nelson County. This situation was conducted back in September of 2022. It's now 2025, right?
Right.
I want to make sure, because
I'm not following what you're trying to say about the timing. He didn't get fired in Nelson. He kept working there, and he kept working,
was he issued
and he's
a
now
break-
working in Amherst.
Okay, but was he issued a Brady immediately in Nelson County?
I can't know when Nelson County issued a letter. I can just say Nelson County sent me these letters that appear to have been from previous, but
And
you'd
that-
have to ask Mr. Rutherford in Nelson County that
Yeah,
question.
well, and this is actually from Mr. Flory, but
Right.
that's another problem with this, because you can't even, I thought with any memorandum, you were supposed to date it.
It is.
Well, we don't know if that's when the occurrence happened, or, well, that's when Lyle received it, was in 2/24. Okay.
Yes, that's when I received it. It was previous to that.
Okay.
All right, board members, if there's no further questions.
I do have-
Oh, you do
I'm
have
so
another
sorry.
question?
So-
All right, Mr. Martin.
I see the logic behind what you're doing, because in a way, I mean, you could argue it that it actually protects the deputy, right? Because
100%.
they've accused this deputy of telling a fib, telling an infactual information on why they didn't show up to work one day, all right?
Right.
So in the grand scheme of things, the attorney for the defendant is gonna try and use any little thing that they can to discredit them.
Yes.
Right? But if we up front say, hey, so-and-so deputy, there was a discrepancy in why they showed up to work one day. I mean, to me, it's kind of like some, I mean, as a Christian, right is right and wrong is wrong, but there's like degrees. I mean, you didn't show up to work, I mean, I was late to work this morning, right? Oh, me, that's wrong, right? But my real question here is, I mean, what kind of instigated these other Commonwealth attorneys sending it to you? I mean, why did Lynchburg's Commonwealth attorney all of a sudden decide they're gonna send you these letters? I mean, are they like following these deputies and saying, oh, well, I didn't issue the Brady letter, but I sure as heck want to send it on over to Lyle Carver so he can issue it?
Well, they're triggered by constitutional rights. So once they are aware of something, whether they've already issued the letter or it comes to their attention, whatever, they're going to notify the prosecutor that will handle it. So the one that went from one jurisdiction A to jurisdiction B to here, I'm the one that ended up writing that letter because jurisdiction A didn't catch it while they were there. Jurisdiction B caught it while they were coming to Amherst. And so in Amherst, the notifications come to me because they no longer have a triggering mechanism, which is a defendant is going to have a case, I have to disclose this. Well, now I do have that triggering event. A defendant is going to have a case, I have to disclose it. So that's why they end up coming to me. If it's already a written letter, that's easy. The letter just comes to me. It follows the officer wherever they go. If they don't have a letter, the facts follow them, and so the facts
I mean,
come
how
to
do they
me.
know where they went? I mean, what if they moved to California?
If they move far enough, people could slip through the cracks for sure. For sure. I mean, we hope not, but it could happen. And that's why the decertification board is ramping up over the last couple of years and more things there, trying to have a little better repository of these things. And if people leave, under what circumstances, law enforcement has to disclose, their agency has to disclose, like if someone left with a pending internal affairs investigation or was fired based on it and things like that. So they're working on cleaning up those issues. But no, certain people certainly could forum jump a little bit if they go far enough and get away with it, I'm sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to be quiet, is that I think at least 3 out of the 5 were, I'll say it, were some pretty petty reasons to issue a Brady letter. I understand why you felt like you had to do it. I think it's petty. I think that one of them, and it's probably the one we're actually talking about funding, is, I mean, if I was going to try and defend myself, it wouldn't necessarily be against you. It would be about it would be against the other Commonwealth attorney, personally. And since this law enforcement officer was working for the county at the time, and some inaccuracy, what I know about it, there were some inaccuracies said, I fully support funding it.
Can I correct you there? I'm sorry to interrupt. Was not working for the county at the time.
I thought it was an investigation.
It was.
Well, okay, but the investigation was a county investigation, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, yeah. Now, that being said, also support fully taking care of all employees. I believe somebody said that, Mr. Rowe, it might have been you. You know, it might not have been you. I don't want to offend you. But, if Mr. Bryant here gets sued for something he does in his day-to-day duties as county administrator, cover your legal fees? Yep, we sure do. How about Mr. Creasy back there? Yep. I've been sued in my job duties at the city of Lynchburg. I didn't pay for them personally, I think that, unless we have an employee that is acting with such malfeasance, if that's the correct word, they're out drinking and driving in a county vehicle or something, totally, yeah, I think we all defend them. Absolutely, I do. So, and, with our deputies, character is a big thing. And when somebody attacks your character, and at least in my opinion, falsely, I think we should defend that too. And I'm not saying that against you at all.
That's fine.
So that's where I'm at on it. I think we should definitely support all of our county employees. I think we need to figure out how to do that. If it's at the discretion of each time it happens, it has to come to this board, or if it goes to the county administrator, or the sheriff, or the Commonwealth attorney, whoever. But I think we should do that. So that's where I'm at, Madam Chair.
All right, I've got one more question, then I would like for Major Begley to come up here. I think there were some questions that board members had for you. So my last question is this, Mr. Carver. I know that back in the late summer, early fall, Sheriff Ayers sent you a letter describing the deficiencies in the original investigation against Mr. Goldman.
Yes.
And I saw the letter because it was part of the, I'm not even going to use the word you used about WSET, but anyway, it's part of Ms. Turner's story. It appeared to me to be a well-done letter, full of facts, seemed to be professionally, the investigation seemed to be pretty professional. Have you responded to his letter yet?
No.
Is there a reason why you've not responded to the sheriff?
It was reviewed by Nelson County, and so there was nothing left to respond to for me.
Our sheriff sends our Commonwealth's attorney a letter, and you send it somewhere else, and you just don't think it's worth responding to?
No.
Okay, then. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Major Begley, could we have some of your time, please?
Board members, I'm Major Begley, citizen here of Amherst County, and I'm in District 1, Mr. Martin's district. I'll be glad to answer any questions. I got all evening. And full transparency. Ask me anything you want regarding this.
Mr. Begley, have you received a Brady letter?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Would you care to share your experience with us?
Yes, so,
Don't say any, I mean, just whatever you're comfortable with.
sure. So I would be the Brady letter Mr. Carver refers to, where there was allegations made against me that I was untruthful in giving testimony before a special grand jury. I've spoke with Mr. Carver numerous times. I've had counsel reach out to him and try to get something remedied on this. We've even provided his office with documents that would show that I was not untruthful in any way. I'm standing up here again before the elected board of this county that's being streamed live on YouTube. Not only that, WSCT is right over there videoing me for all of Central Virginia. If I remember correctly, every member that's sitting on this board right now was made aware of my circumstances, including Mr. Drew Wade. So, Mr. Wade, you are well aware of the situation. And the last conversation you and I had, sir, was you were in full support because you didn't understand how this could happen. I'm also the officer that Mr. Martin's referring to, that he thought that I should have the right to defend myself. Ladies and gentlemen, I agree with Mr. Martin. The Brady letter that was issued against me was issued by Mr. Carver, but it was precipitated by the Commonwealth Attorney in Lynchburg, who made a statement that although she didn't find my testimony to amount to material subject that would warrant perjury charges, she did find it to be untruthful. She has since been provided with documents to include the person that stated exactly what I said. And all mine comes down to, ladies and gentlemen, is whether or not I interviewed with the media about a case that occurred in Amherst County when I was a lieutenant here. That's what mine comes down to, is did I interview with the media regarding that case? I did not interview with the media regarding that case. I answered that. I was asked also, did I talk to other people about this particular case? I stated, yes, I did. That too is a true statement. But I never did an interview. So the reporter that Ms. Harrison believed interviewed me has been contacted by Sheriff Ayers, and she's also communicated with Ms. Harrison. She too says she's never interviewed me for any story. Not only that, she searched the archives at WSCT going back into the 90s. Well, I came to work for the Sheriff's Office in 2001. And she says there's no record I've ever interviewed for any story at any time with WSCT. And I've made Mr. Carver aware of that. We've made him aware of that through email chain between Ms. Harrison's office, counsel, and Ms. Turin. And to this day, there's no movement. So I do agree with Mr. Carver when he says that, defendants have due process, they have rights. They have a right to cross-examine their accusers. They have a right to see all the evidence against them if they're accused of something. Absolutely. And that's called due process. But what about the police officers? What about me? I'm not accused of a crime, but my reputation has been, and my integrity has been challenged. And I stand before you and I can scream and cry and throw a fit or throw the biggest tantrum I want to and say it didn't happen. And I've done everything I can with that. Do you think I'm happy about having to stand up here in front of the Board of Supervisors, our county government, knowing that this is going to be on YouTube for 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30 years, however long that this video is going to be there? And WSCT is recording. You think that I'm proud or happy or excited to be up here having to defend my name? No, I'm not, because I shouldn't have to. And I tried to handle it professionally. I tried to handle it by the man-to-man talk, behind closed doors, professional. The other thing is the letter that precipitated my letter from Mr. Carver that came over from Ms. Harrison. I was never to know about that letter. It was explained to us that I wasn't supposed to get a copy of that letter. But somehow or another, mysteriously, it made it to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Ayers saw it the same day I did. And he later had a meeting with Mr. Carver and asked him what his intentions were with the letter. Mr. Carver told him nothing. He didn't have any intentions with it. Fast forward to February 2024, Mr. Carver brings over Brady letters on 4 different officers all at one time. Now going back to the review, if you think you're doing the right thing, why do you need somebody else to review it? I mean, we know right from wrong. I mean, I'm no legal scholar, but neither is he. And I would agree with him as far as moving something forward in legislation, but he says we need to get the right people in the room. The problem is this bill did get passed over indefinitely. But if you look where it was referred to, it's referred to a committee that's made up of nothing more than prosecutors and defense attorneys. Law enforcement doesn't have a chair at the table. Now, I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic that maybe there'll be some legislation come back that does give police officers the opportunity to defend their name. But I'm not going to hold my breath because I don't know how that works, and there's a lot of politics at play. I don't pretend to know the politics there. But it is frustrating because, you know, when I went back and I was asked to look into the matter regarding Mr. Goldman, in that initial investigation, the initial officer that did that investigation that ultimately led to the Brady letter against Goldman, there was no recorded statements, no audio, no video, no written statements. Now, I went back and I interviewed these folks and I recorded every one of them. They knew they were being recorded. I didn't put words in their mouth. You could call each one of them in here and they'll tell you the same thing. They said that that report against Goldman was untrue. I didn't say it was untrue. They said that what was quoted, that they were quoted as saying in the first investigation was not what happened. They told a reporter that. So I still don't see how, when you have an investigation where the people that you quote in a report says that's not what we said, that's not how it happened. But it triggers a Brady letter, and the man can't get any kind of relief from that. His name, his career was ruined, still is today. And the only reason that it's being brought to light today is because Jimmy Ayers got reelected in November of '23, or else it probably would have still never saw the light of day. And God knows where I would be right now as far as my career. Because the office stands behind me. I'm the number 2 at the sheriff's office. I answer directly to Sheriff Ayers. I am responsible for the day-to-day operations of the Amherst County Sheriff's Office, and I don't take that lightly. But it bothers me that I have this tarnish on my record. You know, like Mr. Martin, I was in the Marine Corps. I served in the Marine Corps for 6 years. I did overseas security contracting. I've been in law enforcement now over 2 decades. And right here, within a couple years of retirement, I end up getting this put on my name. And it bothers me, and it would you too. If I said something about you, called you something, labeled you something, and you knew it weren't true, you'd have the same feeling I do. Imagine just like criminals. That's why criminals, if you're accused of something and you got to worry about going to jail, you should have a right to defend yourself and provide evidence to show that you, in fact, didn't commit the crime. How would you like to go to jail or lose your liberty, or in my case, lose your reputation, or someone attack your character when you know that what they're alleging is not true?
Mr. Major Begley, I'm going to give the board members an
Yes, ma'am.
opportunity to ask you any questions if they have them. Board members?
I do have a question, Major Bagel, and maybe you can answer this, maybe you can't. It might be for the county administrator. So Deputy Goldman had a Brady letter?
Yes, sir, that is correct. He had a Brady letter issued by Mr. Carver's office.
Was that not provided because he's not a current employee? Is that? That's your understanding? I see. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any further questions?
I don't have any, Madam Chair.
I got a couple. First off, what was your hire date, official hire date back at Amherst?
When I just came back from Nelson, January 1st, 2024.
Okay. And would you say that, I'm assuming you're speaking for the officer, unless the sheriff would like to come up. But I'm assuming there was a background investigation, correct?
That is correct.
Would the Brady letter have come up during that?
Are you talking about me?
Yes.
No, because there wasn't anything that happened. That we weren't even aware of anything until January.
Okay. I might ping the Commonwealth Attorney there again on that. How would you say this has impacted you and the other officers?
Mr. Wade?
From doing your duties today, from doing your roles and responsibilities? Has it had an impact?
It has a psychological impact on you, absolutely. It's something else that we're having to contend with. It affects my day-to-day duties because I'm continuously having to deal with, okay, how do we actively recruit folks? we've had interviews with folks that's come in, and they're aware of what's going on between the Commonwealth Attorney, where they brought it up in their interview and asked what's the relationship like and why. So I think there are officers that would otherwise probably be interested in coming to work for us, but they are concerned about what's happened or what they're hearing that's happened so far to other officers in the agency.
All right. Going to the Goldman case, since we're bringing that up today. Who was responsible for performing that reinvestigation?
I was asked by Sheriff Jimmy Ayers to do it, so I conducted that second investigation.
Okay. What are the qualifications? Shouldn't that have been like internal affairs? Or
No, sir.
What are the qualifications for?
The initial one the one that was done first would have been internal affairs because he was still employed there. In this situation, he was not.
Okay.
I was asked to simply follow up on the investigation that was done by the previous captain.
Okay. Was it, I guess, I don't know, the policy, was it not permitted for supervisors to investigate their employees?
Non-internal affairs. If it is a complaint that's been made, and let's delve into this investigation regarding Goldman. So by Amherst County policy then and now, there must be a written complaint made. That complaint was never made in writing. That complaint was made by a phone call from your Commonwealth Attorney then and now, Mr. Carver. It was a phone call made to the sheriff's office that triggered the complaint, and that's in the news story with WSCT. Major Elliott alludes to that. That's how the complaint got started. So, and then it was tasked out to be investigated by, at the time, Captain Reynolds, former Captain Reynolds, who was in an intimate relationship with the Deputy Commonwealth Attorney. And all of this was, it being investigated, had to do with the sheriff, the previous sheriff's daughter, which is the Commonwealth Attorney's wife. So let's make sure we're putting it into context on how this investigation originated and by who and how.
All right. Going back to the Brady letter on yourself, where were you employed at when you allegedly lied under oath?
I was working for the Nelson County Sheriff's Office when I was subpoenaed to come back to grand jury or special grand jury regarding a case that I'd worked or was part of while at Amherst County.
In Lynchburg?
No, in Amherst County.
No, I mean, where was the special counsel?
The special grand jury was here in Amherst County.
Was that? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. But employed for Nelson. All right. That's all. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just ask you one other thing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Major Bagley. So, just to put this clear, and I really didn't want to get into all this today, because really what we're voting on is whether or not to provide funding for legal defense.
Yes, sir.
But I want to point this out.
Yes, sir.
So, you're working for the County of Amherst, and it was a homicide investigation, right? Can I say that?
It was, but it's still pending litigation, so I don't want to go into details of it, but yes, that is correct. It was a homicide.
You went off to Nelson County, you're called back.
Yes, sir.
That's the way I read the letter.
Yes, sir.
You're called back, you testify, all right?
Yes, sir.
You walk out the room and you're like, this is probably a year or so later, right? And you're like,
No, it was 3 or 4 years later.
okay, so that's quite a while, and you're like, I might have testified
Yes, sir.
inaccurately. And on your own merit,
Yes, sir.
turn around and you go on back in there and you say, I want to correct my testimony.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right.
Exactly what happened, right?
That's exactly right.
And then all of a sudden, you're being investigated for perjury.
Unbeknownst to me, yes, sir. And here, if I,
Kind of bull crap to me, because it was on your merit that you went back and corrected your testimony.
yes, sir.
To me, that's character.
Well, I was,
We can sit here and debate this all you want to, but I think the fact
Call
of the
for
matter
pending
is,
question.
should we provide funding for the legal? Thank
Major
you.
Bagley, thank you.
yes, ma'am.
Sheriff, is there anything that, we don't have any questions for you. Is there anything you'd like to add? Thank you. All right, board members, we've got the business at hand here, which is whether we should provide legal funding to law enforcement officers who have received a Bagley letter on what they believe and the sheriff believes to be unfounded.
Not Bagley.
What did I say?
You said a Bagley letter.
No, oh my God, not a Bagley letter, a Brady.
We'll recreate one of those.
Let the record show a Brady.
I want a Bagley letter on me.
It's a long day. The board members, is there any internal discussion here?
I'll just go on record again. I think it's the right thing to do for our deputies. I think it's the right thing to do for our county employees across the board. So how we handle that in the future, I expect our county administrator to bring that back to us, but for the discussion at hand, yes, I support this.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Martin, would you like to put that in a motion?
If I can find it again.
I got it right here in front of me. You want to see it?
I'll just go on the record and say I'm not going to be supporting this. So I think some of these were not officers at the time, and I think this is, the county basically hiring legal services for individuals. And I think, why are we funding to sue the county? I don't see the need. I think, we come back to this once legislation's reviewed next year. I think there needs to be some limitations put on this. I think officers that have Brady letters should have the right to appeal, but I think we should not be funding it outright. I think there should be a cap per officer, and only if they're cleared of the Brady letter, once legislation's in place. So I will not be supporting this at this time.
I understand. I'm sorry. Sheriff, could I ask you a question? Are you going to be mad if I ask you a question? I'm sorry. I just need. Sheriff Harris, thank you. You know how difficult this is because you've sat up here many a year, right? So
Yes, sir.
if this funding is approved for legal fees, what do you see the ultimate outcome being? Or what would you like for it to be?
Obviously, obviously, in the request that you have before you regarding Major Begley, he found himself in the midst of this during his employment. As all of us, whether it's covered by the Division of Risk Management, their services provided for county employees, officers, whomever, if they find themselves in situations that they have to have some legal advice, or legal guidance, or legal representation to represent them in whatever situation they may find themselves in during their employment. So what's the difference in this? This officer in particular that we're speaking of here today has found himself in the midst of this during his employment. And I think, and I'm strong to believe, he needs representation. And folks, I'm going to go back to something. October the 22nd this year will be 40 years of myself in public service. I have never, ever seen anything like this in my life, ever. We're human beings. None of us are perfect. But it seems the expectations now are that we're perfect. And if that's what it is, that's what it is. But if we go back, and I'm going to speak to Deputy Goldman, and we look back and it's been said, it's a TV interview, it's a news interview, how truthful is it? I beg to differ with Mr. Carver on that. And I ask each person in this room, and each of you all as very intelligent and bright people, to go back and look at this article and then look at the after story in that when the number 2 prosecutor goes to allude that this man came under protective orders and that he was under protective orders, and this happened and that happened. When you can see the court orders attached in that same article that I assume must not be truthful, that proved she misspoke and she was not truthful. Where is the accountability, folks? Where is the accountability? When a court order is there and say, this is not truthful, but a staff member from that office is publicly continues to defame this man when he's done nothing wrong to start with. I ask each of you again, where is the accountability?
Thank you.
And yes, these guys should have some legal guidance in what they're dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Harris.
Thank you, Sheriff.
And in response to my colleague, Mr. Wade, I will say this. Yeah, the incident wasn't while he was working here, but it was about an incident that was in the county. And I don't think the letter was issued until his employment here. So I think there's, there's reason to discuss that and consider that. And I'll say this, everybody can say what they want to, but these men and women, not just our law enforcement, but our EMS and career fire people, they are out there dealing with this stuff. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. If they need a little extra help, I think they deserve it. There's a man sitting right there, Mr. Metter, who was shot in the head, and you still suffer from tinnitus, right? Right? And I don't think you got any kind of disability out of it. Maybe you did. But anyway, I'm telling you business. But you know what? The stuff that they put themselves in, and for their character to be attacked, rightfully or wrongfully, I think they should have a right to defend themselves. So,
If I may,
absolutely.
my point is, given the law as it sits now, I think we're pissing our money down the drain because there's absolutely nothing that's going to happen with these letters. There's
Maybe.
nothing that's going to make those letters go away. So I think right now it's too early for this. I think give legislation a chance to get fixed, then circle back. I think right now it's too early.
Fair enough.
And thank you, Ms. Wade, thank you, Ms. Martin, thank you, Mr. Adams. It's no secret, I feel very strongly about this. The last year and a half, I have worked, whether it be legislatively, with people involved, to try to make something that was very wrong right in this county. So our citizens get the services that they deserve, and our tax money is being spent as it should. I absolutely strongly support this, but Mr. Martin, I believe you were going to make the motion.
Unless, does anybody else want to make it, Mr. Adams?
I've got one more question
Oh,
I'd
go
like
ahead.
to know. Mr. Carver, if you don't mind. It's just eating away at me, so I got to know. Why didn't these Brady letters come up during the background investigation?
That's a good question. I'm not privy to the background investigations. I know in some cases, when we were doing the investigation, the agency said that they were still undergoing their background investigations at the same time. I can't speak to why those weren't complete because the people are already working, and they have to be done in advance, so I don't know. Some of them should have come up. Certainly, the one from Nelson County should have come up. The one from Lynchburg/Campbell should have come up because they found it at the same, just before I did, because I know the Commonwealth Attorney told the sheriff he had to disclose it to me. So those should have come up. The one Mr. Begley just talked about would not have come up because the letter that I received, I didn't receive until January the 5th, so there'd be no way to kind of catch that probably. Special grand juries are sealed, they're closed, so there wouldn't be anything floating out there with any information. So until that letter came in January, there'd be nothing to know, so that one couldn't have come up in his background.
Some of them did, is that what you're saying?
Some of them should have come up in their background. Had they background's been done correctly, they would have come up, yes. And so then, like, I'm being attacked for having 5 when the background theoretically should have caught some of them, and then the decision would have been made ahead of time. Maybe I hire, maybe I don't. And then it would have never come to me, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. But I don't make the hiring decision, so who the sheriff hires, and he has every right to hire someone with Brady letters. Like, that is absolutely his right. Like, he can decide who he wants in his department. He can make that choice, and he has. So I'm not part of that decision.
Thank you.
I'm going to move for pending question.
Well, you want a motion, don't you? Is that what you want?
If you've got another question that you need to ask it to be covered.
I was going to make the motion,
Yeah.
but.
No, if you've got a
Now you
question
made me
you've
forget.
asked, please
I'm not
ask it.
attacking anybody, okay? I am not. What you said, Mr. Wade, has a lot of merit about, what is this gonna do, okay? So with that, I think if this board ends up approving this funding, maybe you ought to think about when you choose to use it, right? I'm not telling you what to do, but maybe you ought to decide when you're gonna choose to use it. So that it makes, the most sense, right? And again, for our citizens out there, there's been some of you out over here that say, hey, you know what? This is not a wise use of taxpayer funds, and then there's a group that supports it. At the end of the day, this board is gonna have to make a decision, and where I sit right now, I'm gonna support our law enforcement. So I would move that the Board of Supervisors direct the county administrator to transfer $15,000 from the line of duty insurance line to the Board of Supervisors legal services line item, allowing $20,000, so that's the cap, from which funds can be withdrawn to assist sheriff's office deputies in their legal defense against alleged wrongdoing resulting in the issuance of Brady letters, so long as the sheriff supports and shows the Board of Supervisors that the issuance of the Brady letter is based on inaccurate information. So that's the motion.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. We'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Wade?
Nay.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience in sitting through this. We appreciate it very much. All right, moving on. Sheriff, Mr. Carver, deputies, thank you all for being here. All right, public safety camera system. Chief?
Oh, brother. Him again?
You know, I was thinking and hearing this and listening to this for the last 40 minutes. You know what? This doesn't pass the smell test. Something's wrong.
Mr. Cam?
I'll call you later,
Yeah.
Mr. Cam. I'll call you later.
But something's wrong. It doesn't pass the smell test, and all you know that something's wrong here.
All right, Mr. Cam, we got more business to do. Thank you very much.
This is not right.
All right, Chief, talk to us about cameras.
Hi, good evening, Board. As you all probably remember, last year during the budget process, we had come to you with a camera project to put some pretty sophisticated cameras in here at the admin building and other places throughout the county. We told you in that budget process, we'd identified another potential funding source, and we would come back to you with that throughout the year, so we took it off the budget. So today, I just want to say thank you, Sheriff Ayers, our IT department has been phenomenal, and we worked with Parks and Rec as well. But what this project does is it puts security cameras throughout the county at strategic locations for the purpose of law enforcement to be able to review the cameras with 90-day retention. It also includes the opportunity for our dispatchers to be able to watch what's going on at these locations on two large 85-inch TVs within the 911 center. These cameras will be placed at Mill Creek, Coolwell Rec Center, the Monroe Community Center. It'll be placed at Fertilizer Row. That's correct, right?
Fertilizer Road at the walking and bike trail.
I think I said Mill Creek, county admin here. And basically what this does is your high-tech cameras. It will allow what we call PTZ, point, tilt, zoom. Let's say that we get a call at Mill Creek for a fight in progress, which has happened. Our dispatchers can immediately look on the camera and be able to report to the officers responding, yeah, there are two people fighting, one of them has a gun or one of them has this. We know we've had other unfortunate situations at Mill Creek. This puts eyes on the situation immediately. 2 o'clock in the morning, we see someone pull up at Rivers Edge Park. Dispatch may say, "What's weird? It's 2 o'clock in the morning." May look to see what they're doing and have a deputy respond based on what information they see. Also, we know we've had a lot of vandalism throughout the county, specifically Coolwell. We've had a lot of vandalism at the Monroe Community Center. What this does is take a 90-day retention for the law enforcement purpose for Sheriff Ayers and his team to be able to review that, get tag numbers because it has pretty sophistication to be able to zoom in and read the tag numbers, and be able to prosecute individuals. This total project, we're asking for $150,000 out of the 911 tax funds. That money's already there. We've got over $1 million in those 911 tax funds, and we use those for projects such as this. We're undergoing a remodel and dispatch right now. For the capital project, we've taken a wall out and putting 2 more consoles in. So now is, we think, the right time for this. Why we haven't come back since July, because we told you we'd come back. It's been a very in-depth process. The sheriff and his team, we've been out at locations to see which ones needed SIM cards for cellular data to be able to produce the data back. We've also had to look at what that cellular capability is, power capabilities, all those things. So the sheriff, his team, us, IT, have all met for, hours upon hours of meetings to try and get this right. So that's why we're bringing this to you now. The beautiful part about this, it is a lot of money, it's $150,000, but it's a 10-year package. Those cameras, we have all the data, we own the cameras, we have the computer software, everything for 10 years. The sheriff has been gracious enough to, in his budget, be able to fund the SIM cards that it takes to run the ones that are going to need SIM card. So when you break it down, yeah, it's $150,000 total, but for $15,000 a year, we're going to be able to put that protection at all these locations throughout the county. So let the sheriff speak if there's anything he's got, or we're happy to answer any questions.
Board, one of the main concerns that I think we've had, we, the board, and obviously law enforcement, is our county parks. Mill Creek is heavily used, especially since the swimming's been permitted. Monacan Park, I think we failed to mention that one is also on the list to receive a camera there. There's a lot of, during summer, citizenry there at Monacan Park and uses that. So one thing by those monitors being in dispatch, where the dispatchers are there day in, day out, they can monitor these parks from that room where they dispatch. When they see someone there at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, when obviously someone should not be there, they have the ability with the radio to dispatch an officer to find out what's going on there. Especially the bike trail, walking trail down at the end of Fertilizer Road. If any of you all have ever been down there, it is a very, very remote section. A lot of the Lee property, obviously, there's the Lee's, the right-of-way through there is on their property. They've received damage from time to time. Fence being cut, whatever. Hopefully this will assist us in that, and they are actually going to allow the camera to be placed on a pole on their property to give the best view that we could receive with folks coming in and out of that parking area down there, and to be the trail. So I think it would only be beneficial to our citizens to have this extra security in these places that we've targeted thus far.
Board members, any questions?
I do have some questions. So back before we went to convenience centers, I think it was like suggested we put cameras up. But for some reason, we didn't do that. Is there any kind of legal issue about these cameras that we need to consider?
Not that I'm aware of, sir.
Okay, and these are all on public property? Yes. And we'll be observing?
The only camera that will be is the one at Fertilizer Road, but they will obviously sign a legal document that will permit it to be set in just across.
So it's observing public?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And what about vandalism, damage? How do you prevent the cameras from being vandalized?
Well, one, hopefully we'll see a bright picture of their face when they walk up to the camera. But the sheriff and I have talked about that. We're going to try and put them in place where they have a little bit of elevation on poles and stuff to where they're up and elevated.
And I would assume that probably that would be part of the county insurance policy with these cameras and whatnot. I don't know. That would be up to the county administrator to look into that. But all of them will be elevated, or they will not be able to be easily accessed. And obviously, if someone is going to set up a ladder or do something that, the images are already obtained when they may do whatever to destroy one of these cameras.
I'd just say this, Chief Beam, if this is approved, you're north of $250,000 tonight.
Chief, respectfully, these these funds are from the 911 tax. So 2 different divisions within our office.
I see.
Don't make him give his camera back.
Board, any other questions?
I don't have any, Madam Chair, and with that,
I
I'm
do-
sorry,
I do.
Mr. Wade, go
Sorry.
ahead.
So I love this idea. You did say it was a 90-day retention of the data, is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
so 30 days was standard, but we asked for 90 days because, again, some of these places we go, what happens if, we don't have an event at Coolwell and we don't realize someone's vandalized the bathrooms until day 32?
Right.
Then, we're kind of behind the eight ball. So we thought 90-day would be,
That's good.
would be the appropriate time.
But dispatch will be able to see, right?
Dispatch will be able to see them live all the time. Obviously wouldn't point into the bathroom, but they would see someone coming in and out. But let's say we're able to identify the time the bathroom was vandalized, then the sheriff, through their investigation, come back and say, well, it was a blue pickup truck and had this license tag or whatever.
Okay.
Are there going to be, to hold that data for the 90 days, are there going to be any kind of incurred costs with server storage?
Servers,
anything?
all part of it on their, it retained on their server.
Okay. And going back to the one at the James River Trail, the Blackwater Creek down there, on the Lee property. So we're going to make sure this isn't causing any privacy issues for them, correct? They're
They are
on
very, they have supported this. They
Okay.
have called us numerous times trying to get some help with.
Okay.
They've just put up a fence down there and invested quite a bit of money. So they have been reaching out to us, and they are very aware of this and very okay with because when the technician came down and looked, he said the best place to put the pole, to put the camera on, was actually over on them. And they are fine with it.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I don't have any questions, but I would proceed with making a motion. I move that the board authorize utilization up to $150,000 from the 911 tax fund to install a camera system and six locations throughout the county and include the 10-year software purchase. That's my motion.
All right, motion on the floor by Mr. Adams. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, board. We
Chief.
appreciate it.
Chief, you're done for today. That's enough.
All right, moving on. We have Board of Zoning Appeals. Mr. Bryant?
Okay, thank you. The term of Catherine Gamble, who is an at-large representative on the Board of Zoning Appeals, expired February 3rd, 2025, yesterday. Staff received an email from Ms. Gamble stating she would like to be considered for reappointment, and Mrs. Gamble happens to be here with us tonight. She also serves on the Planning Commission, so she's serving our county quite a bit. There's 2 recommended motions in your packet.
And board members, I'll say that Ms. Gamble is in my district. I've known her for a number of years. I have found her work to be, she's committed, she does her homework, and I could certainly support her reappointment.
Motion.
Any questions?
No, ma'am.
All righty. I'm trying. All right, I move that the board recommend to the circuit court the reappointment of Ms. Catherine Gamble to the board for a 5-year term. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Congratulations, Ms. Gamble.
Thank you, ma'am.
County Attorney, you got anything for us?
No, ma'am.
And departmental reports. The EDA is here with their annual report. Y'all sat through a lot. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and the board. Thank you for inviting us to come in today. And I think Victoria gave you a handout, which is the condensed version of the highlights. I have multiple slides in here, but I am not going to put you through all those unless you want me to put you through all of them. I can hit a couple, but maybe I'll first start with thanking you guys for what I would say is that you guys have handled you handle a lot of tough things all the time. Certainly tonight is no exception. But we have a great working relationship with you. I feel like we really accomplished a lot together in 2024. We were really happy about it. The multi-tenant building was getting that completed, and you guys being there to help us open that up was excellent. That was a multi-year project we could not have done without you. And there are multiple other things that are in the works that we've recently come to you on. there's always room for improvement, and we are constantly looking for ways to improve. I can go through a couple of these. I think the couple things I would just say, though, are that we have the folks on our board now represent a lot of different areas of expertise. And my experience with that is that really helps us make great decisions because we have people we can bounce things off of, and then we have you guys that we can also come to for, for additional guidance. And that's really what we try to do is be conservative with the funding that we get from the county and use it in ways that are going to provide a multiple effect for the quality of life and for driving new business. The other part I wanted to make sure we mention is our staff. We really could not do this without Victoria and Lori. And I asked her tonight, or earlier today, you know, how many years have they been with us? And I think that's something that we forget about. Unfortunately, time continues to go by too fast. But Victoria has been on as our EDA director for 11 years, and and Lori for 8. That's a long time. Most people don't stay with any one company that long. And I think what is really important is they understand the county, they understand economic development, and they understand how to work with you guys and with our businesses here. So I think that a lot of this is due in really the longevity of our relationship. If you want, I can hit a couple slides. If you want, I don't have to. I will leave that up to you, but we have done a lot together this year, so I don't want to tell you something you already know.
Board members, what's your pleasure?
I wouldn't like to discount. I think we need to, I mean, they've spent the time to present this and has been patient with us, so we need to see it.
All right, I can do it in about 7 minutes, so.
That's perfect.
We'll give you 8.
All right, so I've covered these already. These are our esteemed board members. I'm not going to bore you with that, and I already talked about Victoria and Lori. I'm also not going to read the mission and the vision. I think we always keep that in here, but so it's part of the record, and it's here every year. This is really where the meat is here. This is what the EDA is about. It's creating quality jobs, retaining the jobs that we have, enhancing our tax base, and in general supporting things that will help the citizens that live in this county and encourage more to be here. This is my least favorite terminology on this slide. I checked with Victoria. The term basic and non-basic is an EDA sort of standard language. I think no one really wants to be called basic, so I kind of look at this as like your core business and non-core. And I think it is important part here that Victoria reminds us of frequently is we really are striving to work on the core, the basic. If we can drive manufacturing and we can drive the bigger businesses that are bringing and hiring the jobs, it helps, you know, you get that flywheel effect where you're growing these businesses that are supporting that, and in turn you get that symbiotic cycle. And I kind of touched on that here, but as a reminder, for every dollar that a manufacturing puts out, it's growing other dollars by over 2. And for every job it creates, 5 more created. So that is really why we are focused all the time on that core and basic business. Our key initiatives, you know, I think this is something you guys know pretty well, but I think this, sometimes it's an eye chart to look at this, but I always just remind myself which lot is which. And I think the main thing to take away here is the lot that says multi-tenant building is the one you were just on. It's really impressive. The other key lot here is towards the middle, if you will. This is 25.9 acres. That is the lot that we graded in the last few years. So kind of sometimes it's like, why are we investing this money to grade something? Well, the reality is businesses need that jump start in order to get their activities going. And so sometimes you make that investment up front. And other times it helps. Sometimes folks don't have a lot of vision. You know, you have to be able to look at it, and this helps them visualize what they could have there. The bottom right is kind of that wooded triangle, and that is a lot we keep our eye on. We've talked about it. We have not chosen to move forward with anything like clearing it yet, but that is a lot that probably as more of these fill up that we're going to look at how will we make it more available to businesses. This is a picture of all of you guys. Thank you for helping us open it up and supporting us through the financing part of our 1 cent.
I'm sorry, did Lori actually Photoshop me into that? Because one photo that she posted on the internet didn't have me on.
She had a joking slide in here that had your picture was superimposed actually on this slide, and I kept deleting it, and she kept adding it back. So I decided I would let Lori have that joke. The building is out there. This is this picture is from some of our marketing that's out there. What we've tried to do thus far, since it was just really opened there and launched in December, is we've basically maximized the inexpensive marketing that we can thus far. You know, that's word of mouth, that's using Lynchburg Regional Alliance, calling developers we know. We have done all those different pieces, or really Lori and Victoria have. We've told our friends and family and everybody else you can imagine. There have been some nibbles, but it is, you know, it's the time of year where things are a little slow to kick off. We did pay to be in a site selector magazine, which is important. And at this point, we're just starting to look at like, okay, if we really want to put some more dollars behind marketing this, where would we do it and how much? But right now, we've tried to be conservative with the spend on that piece. This is the lot 4, the one we graded, and we're happy that we actually have a letter of intent to purchase. Would be pretty exciting if this goes through. Right now, that's confidential, but we're hoping this possibility comes across. Transitioning, as you can see, is the Dillard site, and Victoria does a great job of looking 3 or 4 or 5 years out. As this Commerce Center fills up, where else are we going to take our folks? And that's really why we are focused on the Dillard location. Our project to get it higher up in the tiers and be ready for development is about 75% complete. And there have been some nibbles out there, you can see in the last bullet, related to groups that would be interested in a site like this. And that's a great example of why we would want to continue focusing here. If you can get a company that's going to drive $1.5 billion in investment and hundreds of jobs, it is well worth the long-term effort here. This one definitely is an eye chart. But it's just as a reminder of kind of what this could look like and what we are building the site towards and how many different locations. And the zoom in here is really on that one particular one. This is the one that's the largest. It could hold a 1 million square foot building. The utilities that run through this particular site are impressive. It's one of the few places in the county that's available like this, situated where it is with this amount of utilities. So that's why we keep working on Dillard. We are also looking at the 210. You know, we've worked with you guys on that and moving that up to a tier 3 in the system. It's a little bit of a challenged piece of property, but it's along a strong corridor there at the 210. And this is kind of an idea of if we can keep moving it up the chain, we could get some smaller companies that would fit in well right there in terms of transportation. CVTC, you can't take your eye off that ball. We continue to work closely with the Lynchburg Regional Alliance. A lot of good things happened last year. Things finally started to move along. The big thing that we're working on right now is taking that $6 million that was left over that the state sort of said could be used by a developer for addressing buildings, and working with the different political groups to try to get that moved to DGS so that they can actually just go ahead and get started on that. We'd like to continue the momentum. That's why we'd like them to go ahead and use that funding, not just let it sit there. A lot of those seem like the big things, but I think we don't want to lose sight of some of the things they were doing that are more tactical, that are more people and community focused. And that's the Leadership Amherst group that Lori does a lot of leadership with. 8 different graduates this year. I got to join them for one of their lunches. Really great people, really excellent meeting. Had a great speaker. I mean, all around it was really good. I learned all kinds of things myself. So this group is doing a great job, and look forward to the next class in 2025. And the workforce development piece, you know, with 2 kids, both of them, one in Manelson, one getting ready to go to Manelson, I would say this is a great investment. You know, the EDA is partnering with CVTC to fund this role, and the county does an excellent job of calling that out. I see my kids come home and talk about the different pieces. I enjoy going through these different ones myself. And so I think this is a key thing for the EDA to be able to do, because it helps. It's something great we can go talk to businesses about how we're assisting them. And, you know, the beautification committee is awesome. They do a fantastic job Calvin on our board is an integral part of that. And I don't think this can be, left out. We've had situations where we didn't get different types of economic opportunities here because things looked rough. And so while this looks small, this is really the grassroots effort to make things look better, which enables us to then entice the bigger fish when they come through. So I think this is important that we continue to work with that group. And that is it for me. Hopefully that was 7 minutes. Any questions I can answer for you guys?
Board members?
Not really. Well, I do have a question. Where was that mural at?
That's Anderson.
Oh, that's Anderson?
Anderson Market, yes.
Drive by it every day.
I focus on the road.
Good answer.
Well, I'm in awe of what you all do, and I've been supportive since when all this stuff came on board. And I'm really appreciate your understanding of cosmetics. My daddy used to say, "You look good, you do good," And I'm a firm believer in that. You look clean, people want to come to a place that's clean and tidy, and every time I go somewhere, it's all clean and tidy, the first thing I notice. But thanks for everything that you all do, and I agree with you, the board that you've put together now is awesome. So much talent and horsepower on that board. Thank you all.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Absolutely. That was my only comment. I've told Victoria many times, and Andrew and I have had some discussions as well, but I'm so excited and invigorated with the direction y'all are going, and it seems like the energy that you have behind you, from my previous experience on the board many years ago compared to now, it's like night and day. So I truly appreciate everything you guys are doing, and man, just keep a momentum in high gear. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll say thank you. I just got one question.
Sure.
Got any leads on getting somebody in that multi-tenant building?
There's the one nibble so far, so,
I'll take it.
we're constantly pushing it, yeah.
Yeah. No, thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Right.
Thank you very
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Have a
y'all
good
very much.
evening. Sorry it took so long to get
Oh,
to
it's
this
all good.
point,
We
but
appreciate your support.
it was interesting, wasn't it?
It was always interesting. You guys have a tough job, very tough job.
We don't want to disappoint.
All right, thank
I'll be
you.
on the EDA and you be on the board.
Next, we will move on to, this is just for our information, the general fund availability report. Did we have any questions? It was just really FYI for us. Okay. Moving on is citizen comments. Anyone here wishing to speak? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close citizen comments. Members from matters from the board. Mr. Wade?
One thing, I know I might have been tonight's dissenting vote, but I would ask if the board's okay with it, that the county administrator set up bi-weekly meetings at minimum with our county attorney's office and the sheriff's office, specifically the sheriff and Mr. Carver, just to start hashing through things, kind of get everybody on the same page again, make sure everybody's on a unified front. They could talk about what's coming up, what issues they have, and then kind of work together, maybe even find ways like working with the school administration to save money on some projects between the offices later down the road. But I would request no proxies be a part of that as far as, I think it needs to be the sheriff himself, and I think it needs to be Mr. Carver as well. With that meeting, if we need a facilitator, I'll volunteer myself to take off of work to kind of lead that up, just to kind of get it started, get things moving, but that's my recommendation.
So let me make sure I understand it. So is the request that the county administrator sit down with the two constitutional officers together?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And you're saying that you would like to facilitate it?
I was gonna say, I'll be happy to sit in as well.
As would I. And I think anybody sitting here would be happy
Well,
to do
obviously,
that.
not but so many of us can go, but
I'm sorry?
can't go, not but more than two of us can go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Obviously, we can't make them sit down with each other, right? We're just suggesting it.
It's a
I
recommendation,
think,
yes.
personally, I think it would be more beneficial if our county administrator kind of took charge of that and kept the board out of it.
Yeah.
But-
Are you good with that, Mr. Wade?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you understand what we're after?
Do I have three of you?
I think you got 4 of us.
Oh, do we need to vote on that?
No, but I just want to get, I want to
There's a
make sure.
consensus.
I think you got the general consensus.
I want to make sure. Okay.
But I think we need to be respectful of Mr. Bryant too, because I don't want to put him in a vulnerable position trying to, how should I put this? Mend the fences of 2 constitutional officers.
That is true.
Right? That's one thing I am not going to do to our county administrator. As long as he feels comfortable with that, as far as stimulating those talks and trying to see what we can do, I'm all for it, but I am not going to push anything upon him to where it puts him in an uncomfortable position.
And if they refuse, they refuse.
Nothing
And
we can do. It's
To me,
nothing we
no
can do
harm,
for
no
them.
foul. If they don't
Yep.
want to do it, they don't do it.
That's exactly right.
Yep,
So,
fair enough.
Facilitate it, great.
Oh, I can do it.
Okay.
Thank you. So I want to set the parameters. I'm going to invite the sheriff and the Commonwealth's attorney and myself and hold bi-weekly meetings until at some point in time we hopefully won't need them.
Yeah.
Does that
Or
sound?
they-
Or they do it on their own.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Sounds
And I'm
good.
not going to invite the county attorney right now. I love him, but
Yeah, we're invited.
All right, Mr. Adams, do you have anything?
A couple things, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. I know you're going,
I'm going to Richmond.
censure me,
I'm
uh-huh.
I'm going to Richmond.
oh, well, you can, that's nothing important there. Couple things. On the heels of the EDA about the 29 beautification stuff on the south end, Mr. Bryant, can you, I'm not sure, I know we'd had some discussions about this, but the entryway coming across John Lynch Bridge and Carter Glass Bridge into the county is starting to get a little out of control. You got an update on that?
the answer is yes. May I give you an update when you're ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The update is we one time put a crew out there. We got the fire department brought a truck out. We had sheriff's deputies. VDOT said no more. And VDOT approved it. They approved us to do that. They said no more. The section from route, it's a limited access highway from Route 163 down to the river. We're not allowed to put our crews out there.
Okay.
We're not allowed to be out there. It's VDOT. We will continue to stay after them. After the last time you made that comment, we asked them to take care of it. I'll do it again, and I'll call them personally tomorrow.
We need to stay on
But
top
it
of
is,
that.
correct.
Wait a minute. So here's a road in Amherst County that is in need of some TLC. And we went out there and used our resources to clean it up. And then VDOT told us no more.
They said that section was too unsafe. And
Well,
so they want to
then
use
tell
their,
them to step it up.
okay.
Yeah.
They want us to use their bumper trucks, which we,
Well, tell them to step it up,
Yeah.
plain and simple, because it's not working for us.
okay, will do. Yes, sir.
And the only other thing, I think, it was something else, but I can't remember. But it was how are we coming on the landfill project, Mr. Bryant?
Yeah, great question. Really pretty well. That we have put out an RFP. We're waiting on bids to come back. We've been also meeting about every other week with Davenport to try to tee that up. That's coming to them at the February 18th meeting. Does that sound right? Ms. Yeah. So that should be at your next meeting.
Will they be here as well? Davenport be
They
here?
will, they
Okay.
will, to
All right.
discuss financing. I do want to give major kudos, and I should have done it earlier, the consent item. Our staff has saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars. I put that in your summary report. It's under the consent item. They've been moving, and I wrote down the number of, we have moved with our own staff to save money, 1,063 loads of dirt. Wow. In preparation for what they call a flyover. We're doing a flyover for cell 2 in order to understand, for cell 1 to understand, 1, our airspace, but 2, the capacity and how much dirt we need to take out of cell 2. Our crews have been doing that for weeks now, prepping that site and getting down so when a contractor comes through, there's less dirt to move, and so our prices would be a lot less. So we've been using our forces to the extent that we could. So I just wanted to tell you that. But yes, it will come back to you very soon with financing at the next meeting and bids soon to follow.
Okay. So, not to delay this, Ms. Tucker, but on the heels of that statement about our staff moving all this, if they have the time to do all this, which I'm appreciative of saving money, what is their normal
We've been doing,
task?
they've been working overtime.
Okay. All right, no further.
Mr. Martin?
Yes, Mr. Bryant, House Bill 2438, and this might be for the county attorney, but I believe is a bill on solar facilities. One that I think we opposed last year, but I believe it's back in some form about taking authority away from the local governments to regulate these. If you could provide us an update on that bill, and if need be, if we need to send a letter opposing it, I'm not sure if there's still time to do that. It'd be nice if we could do that. And also, there is a solar facility, I believe was one of the first ones in Amherst County on Union Hill Road. And the owner that is adjacent to it has expressed some serious concerns with the buffer or lack thereof. And I know I'm very appreciative of county staff. I know Mr. Bryant, Mr. Creasy. I've been out there, AEP representatives have been out there, and I'm not exactly sure if anything else can be done to satisfy this owner, but I am requesting at the next meeting you kind of provide us a synopsis of that project, how it got built, how the buffers got put in, and give that owner a few minutes to speak. I'm not sure what we could do, but I think he wants to be heard. So if we could do that, I'd appreciate it.
Anything else, Mr. Martin?
No, ma'am, thank you.
The only thing I've got is, today is crossover in the General Assembly, so any bill that has not passed its House of Origin is automatically dead. Crossover is typically a day of celebration, sort of, unless you got a bill that didn't pass, and it's a day of sorrow.
Right.
So that's that, so keep that in mind when you look at your bill. Anything else? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are hereby adjourned. Thanks, everybody. It was a long one, but we did good work.